Alrighty, welcome back to whatever this is. We're calling it Fraggoth Reads still? Yep, we're still calling it Fraggoth Reads. I am too lazy to change the title. At this point, it is also 6 months into the year, so it is now officially too late. Hi, I'm Fraggoth. Happy Pride Month and stuff. I guess this is sort of appropriate for that. Kind of. It has a LGBTQ protagonist. Very well rendered. One of the things I definitely think I forget how many books that Jinwoo Chong has out by now. I don't know. He might have written one since this. I think he had one before this, and I have to read that one at some point. I do have to give a lot of credit. The protagonist is very well realized. He feels very organic. It is. I find sometimes difficult to do that in first person perspective. As a non creative type, I assess this from the outside. I don't write, but I don't write creatively, I should say. I should have meant. But I do feel that the main character, Brandon, is quite well realized in much the same way that a character from, say, a C.J. Cherryh novel is well realized. Like it feels like there's a lot going on, and in first person perspective, either you lie to the audience, either through omission or outright to make them an unreliable narrator, or you show them to be a basically reliable narrator, but they like slowly unfold like an onion doesn't a flower, something like that, and you see more facets of them. And I think Jinwoo Chong does a very good job of making that work with Flux's protagonist. Anyway, what happened last time? Let's pick up our copy and figure out where we left off. Let's see. Oh, right. The last thing that happened. So we've gone through a sequence where our boy keeps waking up. I woke. I dug under my pillow, having spotted the edge of my phone and checked the time. Nearly 8. I had become used to waking just a handful of minutes before my alarm, and, just my luck, today had been no different. And this happens for a bunch, quite a few pages, and keeps kind of repeating this morning sequence. So we're not sure what's going on there. Maybe some more details will be forthcoming. Who knows? At any rate, however, the last thing that happened is that he has gotten a phone call now in the morning from Kaz, who's, well, we'll learn more about Kaz today, and what Kaz is like at this point in time, and why that's significant. This is important, and or it's going to reveal a lot of important details that are going to make a lot of things are going to click into place with this. And it's like, okay. We do, however, start out with another sequence about Jacket Guy. Alrighty, let me slurp down some fluid, and we will get rolling with some more of Flux. We should have this finished this week, no problem. Alrighty. 9. Jacket Guy steps into frame among the strewn debris of splintered wood and broken glass, a shot tight on the floor interrupted by the dark wash legs of his pants. Beads of pearls roll around the floor. It is evident that the scene, an antiques storefront on the edge of Little China, has been only recently ransacked, as the paper lanterns strung over the cash register, ripped from the counter, are still rotating weakly over the heads of the officers that canvass the perimeter. Jacket Guy's eyes linger on the desolation. Furniture lies smashed, beaten with hammers, perhaps the discarded pipes on the ground that rollick and roll as personnel step around them. There is not a single inch of the store that has not been ravaged, in a way that might convince this viewer of simple vandalism, if, that is, this were a different show. Oh, I didn't read that correctly. That's another thing I really want to give a lot of credit to, is he's totally got down, or the author totally has down the, like an 80s cop show vibe, if it was, a bit better than the usual fare. It's really well rendered. I'm very happy about that. It's recognizable. There is not a single inch of the store that has not been ravaged, in a way that might convince this viewer of simple vandalism. That is, if this were a different show, and its hero anybody but the inimitable Jacket Guy. The camera moves nimbly over his shoulder, focusing on the figure of a lion carved from wood whose head is missing an ear and jaw, smashed off by sledgehammer. It is a scene falling within the first 10 minutes, Season 2, Episode 6, Mercy for the Damned, that lays out in succinct and unmistakable terms the ruthlessness with which Jacket Guy's recurring antagonist, the loan shark and shipping magnate Chen Shi, otherwise known among the shadowy circles as the Demon Head, is known to act. His name is one that instills fear among the organized criminals of Little China, synonymous with unspeakable brutality. Jacket Guy has encountered the name only once before, after questioning a witness to a gang-related killing in a previous episode. Nevertheless, there is little that explains why the store, thought to be the honest business of the family living in the apartment just above, has been destroyed, and the family themselves vanished into thin air. A cry pierces the room. Jacket Guy whirls around, holding up a hand for the attending officers to freeze, and, regaining his bearings, aims his flashlight beam under a piece of particle board fallen from the ceiling. It becomes gradually clear that the board is moving, slightly. The sounds of little, ragged breaths become apparent. Jacket Guy reaches out a hand, curling his fingers under the board, and lifts it. Behind it is a little boy, cowering, covered in dust, with a fat cut on his lip, seeping a branch of blood down onto his shirt collar. He does not look to be more than 5 years old. His eyes are wild, turning nervously. He attempts to squirm deeper into the debris, away from Jacket Guy's hand. Jacket Guy retreats slightly. "It's okay, son," he says, calmly. It is rare to witness even an ounce of tenderness escaping Jacket Guy's grizzled face and exterior, but the voice that leaves him in this moment is not only level, but warm, even. The ring of the word son through the air, through the static, is not without significance, as Jacket Guy, unmarried, childless, barely 30 years old, is in many ways the furthest fit from a parental figure, as has been established over 31 episodes thus far. And yet it is clear he has taken to the role as naturally as a fish to water. The officers around him approach, but he turns his head, glaring, and appears to force them back with the strength of his gaze. Jacket Guy puts forth his hand once more, then, sensing the child's hesitance, puts his palm to his chest. "My name's Tommy," he says. It does not escape this viewer that this is the first moment, the only moment, in which Jacket Guy introduces himself by his first name, Thomas, miniaturized perhaps for the child's comfort.
Or was it that, in identifying himself as such, Jacket Guy has provided a brief look into a childhood he has sworn through successive episodes and intimate trysts with prying women never to elaborate upon? The question arrives to this viewer: did Jacket Guy's own parents call him Tommy when he was a child? It is never confirmed, not for the rest of the show's run, but the clue here, just one clue, is enough. The child offers up his hand, and Jacket Guy takes it, giving it a firm but little shake. "Will you tell me your name?" he asks, carefully. The child cocks his head, suspicious. It is not altogether clear whether he has understood. Then he coughs, setting loose a layer of dust from his hair and shoulders. "Moto." Jacket Guy nods, clears his throat. After a movement, it is not clear whose, Moto is lifted from the debris and loops his arms around Jacket Guy's neck. It arrives to all who witness, from the striking silhouette of the man with the boy in his arms, that something new has been unearthed. With his entrance in Mercy for the Damned, Moto is the first and only child character to be given lines. With his introduction comes the acknowledgement of new ground, a new atmosphere through which Jacket Guy must navigate, and, more importantly, a new and laborious facet of his personality that is given in part to humanize the stony hard edges of his character. This much is clear. Neither Jacket Guy nor the show will ever be the same. Officers stand their ground as Jacket Guy steps carefully back over the rubble to the awaiting sunlight. Bo opened his eyes. The ceiling stars he'd stuck to the side of his room had almost entirely lost their ability to glow, even in the dark. They were a pasty green color now, just barely absorbing the morning light. Through the floorboards he felt his father's footsteps downstairs. He was not sure which day it was. He had trouble keeping track when not in school anyway, but he was having more trouble now. He counted back. His grandparents had been by the day before. He and Kaz had played upstairs while the adults had talked. The day before, or maybe it had been the same day, Bo had woken to snowplows clearing the streets. He'd woken to their sound that morning and forgotten for a moment that they'd driven home from the hospital the night before. The clouds had teased them with flurries every few hours, and the streets were still cold enough to make them stick, but not enough to pack together. The frost would be gone by morning. Bo could place the snowplows in his memory better than anything else. The snowplows had come the day before his grandparents, Bo was quite sure now, which would make today Christmas morning. He sat up, rubbing an arm across his eyes. Kaz was still asleep in his bed, arms raised haphazardly around his head, a corner of his blanket trailing the ground. Bo rolled quietly from his blankets and went out the second-floor landing, where the stairs wound away toward the glow of the kitchen light. He stayed still, listening. His father was on the phone. His voice could be heard in low tones curling around the stairs. Bo reached the top of the stairs and felt the last floorboard dip, giving a hissed creak when he put his weight on it. Downstairs, Hal quieted. Bo held his breath. "Hang on," Hal said. Give me a second. I think one of my guys is awake." Each waited, listening. Hal stood. His footsteps fell across the kitchen to the staircase. He poked his head up. They found each other. Hal held a phone to his ear. He smiled, comfortingly, and beckoned with his hand. Bo idled, nervous, but came down the stairs. Hal had returned to his seat at the kitchen table, where a mass of papers and manila folders had taken up the available space. "I'm sorry, let's finish this tomorrow, yeah? I'm really sorry. I don't mean to make all this work for you on Christmas. No, not at all. No, we're hanging in there. My Bo..." He glanced over his shoulder as Bo reached the bottom of the stairs. "My Bo's strong. We'll be okay. Yeah, talk soon. Merry Christmas." Hal hung up. Bo watched him replace the phone among all the papers on their table. He turned around, reaching up to rake his fingers over the back of his head. "You're up early," he said, observing with surprise. Bo shrugged, the first thing that came to mind, though he couldn't be sure it was what he really felt, or why he had found himself awake. Hal came to him, crouched low, and kissed his head. His arms were heavy. "I love you. Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas, Appa." They didn't speak much more. Hal set about clearing the table and poured Bo his cereal. The television was turned on. A morning news show ran through a sappy segment on soldier homecomings. Hal watched him eat. "Who are you talking to on the phone?" Bo asked. Hal seemed to hear at a second's delay. He raised his chin from where he'd rested it on his crossed forearms. He had endless energy whenever around the boys. Now, he looked seconds from sleep. "Just some hospital stuff." He'd been on the phone for hours, almost every day since. Bo didn't recall anymore the sounds of his climbing up the stairs at the end of the night. "Are we going to have a funeral?" They turned their heads at a scream from the television. A video was playing of a dentist whose soldier son had surprised her in the office. They watched the shaky image capture two hugging bodies, the mother's arms wrapped tight around the soldier's head. "Yes," Hal said finally, "we are, but not until after New Year's." They were in their boxers. Bo glanced under the table, his feet swinging free off the chair, and those of his father's planted firmly on the ground. They had the same exact toes. "Bo," Hal said, moving closer. They were just inches apart now. Bo strained to hear noise from upstairs. "Let's have a good Christmas, yeah? I don't want you to worry right now. We'll open presents when your brother's up." "We have presents?" He saw Hal's face falter slightly. His breath smelled like coffee. "Of course we do," he said. Creaks sounded above them. Kaz's feet bounding across the floor to the door. "Christmas!" he howled, tumbling down the stairs. He sprung into Hal's arms. "Christmas! Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas!" Hal strung them both up, one in each arm, and carried them to the tree, already lit. Bo and his brother were tossed onto the couch. Kaz was screeching something about Power Rangers, bounding up, performing a running leap off the cushion onto Hal's back. Their noises filled their quiet house anew.
"You've gone off the end, Detective," says Jacket Guy's commanding officer. "I can overlook your methods. I can shield you from the DA because you get me results better than any other guy on my payroll. But this is absolute unequivocal danger. You're telling me you can take care of a kid right now? A kid that doesn't even speak English?"
Jacket Guy is seated in his commanding officer's glass cubicle. Together, they look over the chaotically organized desks of the precinct. Moto on the edge of one, wrapped in a blanket, holding court among 3 officers gathered around him.
"It's temporary,"
Jacket Guy says gruffly.
"There's not a chance in hell."
"Not up to you, sir," Jacket Guy says. About this, he is surprisingly cool-headed, though this would come largely as no surprise to this viewer by Season 2. "I'd like to take him while we handle this shop vandalism. We find his parents, he goes back. We don't, he goes into foster care. I want access to him. He knows something about what happened."
"And you think he'll tell you a damn thing? You. For all he knows, you're the cop that scared off his entire goddamn family."
Jacket Guy motions over his shoulder. Moto smiles, hands curled around a cup of... Jacket Guy turns his head. Yes, it's a cup of coffee. He stands, banging his fist against the glass. "Fellas, take that away from him. What are you thinking?"
"Apologies, Daddy-O," says Douche Cop. "Little potsticker sweet thought this."
Jacket Guy decides against picking the fight. He waits for Douche Cop to take Moto's cup away, then sits back down. Jacket Guy's commanding officer shakes his head slowly.
"This'll come back to haunt you."
"Let it," says Jacket Guy, with finality that cannot be understated. Even Jacket Guy's commanding officer is smart enough to recognize the weight behind the words. He says nothing more. Jacket Guy gets up, taking a mess of folders of the desk between them. Must be off the desk and it's missing an F. He finds Moto outside.
Where we go?
Moto says, looking up at him. Jacket Guy pauses. On his face, in a close-up, is a brief entertainment of the fact that the consequences of his actions today have far graver effects than he has considered before. There is nothing to suggest, logically, that he has kept this boy out of danger by doing so. But this look disappears from Jacket Guy's face within another second, because Jacket Guy does not overthink. It is one of his best qualities, and yet, in his line of work, sometimes a flaw that his enemies have sought to exploit. But something has changed in the way Jacket Guy views this boy and, by extension, himself. A change that does not announce to him its absolute enormity just yet, but will soon enough.
Are you hungry?
Moto makes a face, then nods.
Then we'll eat.
They are interrupted by the sound of a courier at the entryway. A teenage boy enters, carrying in his uneasy arms a bouquet of flowers wrapped in parchment paper.
Mr. Raider, he calls. Package for Mr. Raider.
Jacket Guy approaches the teen, who sets the flowers down on an available desk.
I didn't order flowers, he said.
Nobody orders flowers for themselves, do they? Says the teenager.
Who sent them?
I deliver them, boss. I don't ask questions. The teenager exits. Jacket Guy is left in a clear space between the desks, considering the bouquet, which has been tightly wrapped around with twine. Jacket Guy's commanding officer emerges from his office, leaning against the doorway.
Love a boy,
says Douche Cop, slapping Jacket Guy on the back.
Don't keep us waiting.
Jacket Guy shakes off the hand. The camera follows the blurry outlines of the unraveling twine, focused in the background on Moto's face, watching it happen. The paper falls away. On the desk is a bouquet of white roses. A gasp is heard, off-camera. The flowers are caked with blood, red splotches on the delicate white petals. Moto looks around the precinct, unaware. Jacket Guy's commanding officer reaches them at the desk.
What the hell is going on here? Who sent you that?
Jacket Guy doesn't answer. He reaches forward, then thinks better of it and uses the sleeve of his jacket to knock the blood-stained note off the petals. It falls open in front of them. Value your discretion, officer, it reads. It is your greatest asset. One day, it may save your life. Douche Cop attempts a show of bravado.
That's the worst love letter I've ever seen in my life.
It's not a love letter, Jacket Guy says.
Somebody's telling me to stay away from the break-in this morning.
He faces his commanding officer.
This isn't some wannabe drug dealer. Anybody who sends something like this to the precinct has got to have the firepower to back it up. It's a threat.
You think it's she?
Who else would it be?
Jacket Guy's commanding officer circles the desk. He waves over an evidence team, who form a perimeter around the desk. Shouts go up. Somebody get outside! Find that kid!
This isn't ideal, Jacket Guy's commanding officer says. We're not in a position to pick a fight with the Demon Head. Let me call down to the 1-9. They've got better federal access.
But Jacket Guy isn't listening. He has realized he has unearthed something far more sinister than a small-time break-in. In an elongated tracking shot over his face as blurry bodies swirl around him in slow motion, it is as though Jacket Guy has received a vision of sorts, that he can sense the impending arc of the next 10 episodes, in which a witness to the Antiques break-in will surface, leading Jacket Guy to the underground gambling den in the heart of Little China, in which Jacket Guy will learn of a smuggling operation in the Macaulay shipyards contingent of the delivery of $50 million worth of counterfeit bills, and a revelation of an informant within the precinct relaying Jacket Guy's movements direct to the Demon Head's network, in which a shootout one episode later, orchestrated by said traitor, the very man standing next to him, tall, wretched douche cop, will put Jacket Guy in the hospital with bullets in his chest and stomach. in which a crime beat reporter whose name this viewer has never remembered, the only woman to appear recurrently among Jacket Guy's sexual exploits, dangled in front of this viewer's eyes as Jacket Guy's one true chance at a happy future, will inadvertently save him from certain death at the hands of assassins hired to kill him in his bed, yet end up a swollen body in the river just one episode later, when she attempts to investigate the faulty shipyard and its network of handlers. An arc in which Jacket Guy's return to the precinct, motivated by vengeance, will instigate a 2-episode finale that will inevitably pit one man against unerring evil, while the integrity of a neighborhood on the edge of ruin and total takeover by a violent crime syndicate hangs precariously in the balance. Jacket Guy appears deep in thought in this moment, as though considering these hypotheticals. But, with a movement of the camera over his shoulder, the truth is revealed. He is staring with hard concern at Moto, who is watching the mess of officers slowly begin to bag the bouquet and note in plastic for examination and analysis. How is it that within 20 minutes an abandoned child has come between Jacket Guy and the inimitable pursuit of justice? Is he thinking of little Huiling Tao, left behind a dumpster by her father to freeze to death in Season 2, Episode 2, The Mighty and the Weak, to date the only victim whose death he has failed to bring to justice? Perhaps. None can say but Jacket Guy, who doesn't say anything at all. Hal handed Bo the first box under the tree, wrapped in foil. Bo dug his fingernails into the paper and ripped, uncovering a Game Boy Advance in silver. He nodded, quietly, over Kaz's claps and hoots. Hal winked at him. It turned out every gift was either for Kaz or Bo. They sat, surrounded by shreds of paper, with hauls of toys, boxed Lego, socks and mittens from their grandmother.
Papa, where's your presents?
Kaz asked absent-mindedly. Hal was busy gathering their trimmings into the garbage bag. He glanced around, feigning surprise. Santa didn't bring me anything this year, Kazzy. Must have done something naughty.
That's not true, Kaz said, standing up. He brings you coal if you're naughty.
Hal opened his arms, and Kaz leapt off the couch into them. Let's build your kite, huh? Open the box for me, and I'll help you. Bo watched his brother haul the box he was looking for out of the bottom of a tower of Lego, sending it tumbling to the ground. He held the Game Boy in his hands. It was the color he wanted. Hal had even wrapped a value pack of batteries. There were no notes, he saw. He wondered how long it had taken Hal to unstick them all from the wrapping paper without ripping them. How many of them said things like love, Uma, and Appa, or other things his father didn't want him thinking about anymore. His mother could make things so warm, and it only appeared to him now just how different the tree looked, the light coming through the windows, even the sound of their voices. He closed his eyes. He wanted to do what his father had asked. Bo, why don't you put on an episode? I'll watch with you while I'm building.
I hate that show, Kaz complained. It's scary.
It's about real life, Kazzy, Hal told him. You know, police officers do a lot of the same things that superheroes do. A lot of really dangerous things. Maybe that's why your brother likes that show. It wasn't, but Bo knew better than to make corrections. Kaz would never like Jacket Guy, no matter what he said. Kaz could never understand Jacket Guy like he and Hal could.
I don't want to watch that show,
Kaz repeated himself. Hal paused, bent over the kite-building instructions. Let's go into the kitchen, honey. Follow me. Turn it on, Bo. I'll watch with you in a bit.
I can hear it from the kitchen.
Kaz clamped his hands over his ears.
That's not fair. Amma wouldn't let you watch that show, Bo.
Bo counted the spaces between his fingers while Hal herded his brother into the kitchen. It was too early for Kaz to latch genuinely onto his frustration. They were not near a meltdown in any sense, but they all heard Kaz say it, and it had stopped their flow of time. Things moved out of order now, too fast for Bo to perceive them clearly. Because of all the ways Because of all the ways he has been reminded of her this morning, and for the past few mornings, none had cut him exactly the way it sounded when Kaz said her name. Because it was his voice, too, that he could hear in his little brother's voice. It was the same word, the tone. It was the same. Wow, okay. Because it was his voice, too, that he could hear in his little brother's voice. It was the same tone the word took when he said it himself. Bo would not say it for a long time, he knew this much. He might never say it again. He crossed the room to the drawer where they kept the VHS tapes. He liked all of them. He hadn't seen the one with the shootout in the police station in a long time. It was frightening, even for him, and a lot of blood. Any that approached the end of Season 2 were strangely unsettling to him now, especially knowing what happened at the very end. He didn't like the way it made him feel. He picked an early episode from Season 1, Head of the Bear, in which Jacket Guy infiltrated the Russian mob at the Pierside Carnival. There was a naked woman in it, a girl Jacket Guy sleeps with who later saves his life toward the end of the episode. It was that penultimate moment in which Jacket Guy finds himself tied to a chair while the big Russian strongman holds a shotgun to his shoulder. He is told what the shell would do to the muscles and bone. His arm would be taken clean off. Jacket Guy stares, defiant. The strongman is about to pull the trigger when the girlfriend sneaks in from behind and shoots him dead. The rest of the strongman's cronies kill her, quickly, then run scared as the sirens emerge and Jacket Guy's long-awaited reinforcements finally arrive. It is the last shot of the episode. Jacket Guy, in the chair, still tied up, looking over her dead body off-screen while the credits roll over his face. Bo put it on, sitting at an angle on the couch, so that he could best hear into the kitchen. Over Kaz's shouts, he had to strain to hear some of the words people were saying. He sat, following Jacket Guy's conversation at the precinct, the carnival at night, the bear in the cage, the beautiful lion tamer who didn't wear pants, the warehouse shootout, and only realized once the moment that had always sent chills up his spine arrived, that long, solemn shot of Jacket Guy's face, that he'd watched the entire thing by himself. Jacket Guy screws his eyes shut against the bright white lights hitting his face. The camera wavers, blurred in the foreground in and out. Beads of sweat roll down his forehead. It is evident Jacket Guy is in a fair bit of pain after the cliffhanger shootout at the end of Season 2, Episode 19, Send in the Clowns, that left several officers dead and Jacket Guy lying in a pool of his own blood on the floor, sprawled among flying papers and stomping feet. Jacket Guy's eyes adjust to the light, wincing. The lacerations to his stomach were serious enough that he has grown a half-inch beard while unconscious in the hospital. The scruff hides his impeccably sharp jawline and gives the appearance of a man at least 5 years older. His eyes are sunken, circled around with intricate bruising. A half-inch cut still shows up red under a bandage on his cheek. His hospital gown hangs off one shoulder, exposing pale and bony flesh. It is Jacket Guy as this viewer has never seen before, vulnerable, an important distinction between the Jacket Guy that hangs in the balance of death, partially unclothed, and the Jacket Guy that has many times over smoked a cigarette in bed without a shirt on while his girl of the week folds his clothes. The hard shell has gone. The bruises are proof. This is a broken man. The camera pans away from him, revealing the back of a black-haired head. Moto regards him with silence, though his eyes are quite wide. Jacket Guy swallows, painfully, attempting a sound. He glances around the hospital room for help, finding none. "Hurts?" Moto asks him. Jacket Guy shakes his head. "You lie."
So what if I am?
Jacket Guy croaks, finally managing to make a sound.
Who brought you here?
"Miss Lady,"
Moto supplies, jerking his head toward the window. Jacket Guy's middle-aged neighbor, a Russian widow and seamstress with 2 adult daughters, consults with a doctor in the hall. Her first appearance had been in the pilot episode, in which Jacket Guy, attempting to mend the gash in his jacket sustained in the first action sequence of the series, refused her stitching advice through the fire escape window where they occasionally spoke.
She shouldn't have brought you here,
Jacket Guy says, complaining. He attempts to sit up, but makes a defeated moan, his stomach seizing, and capitulates, falling back against his pillows. Moto swings his legs out from under him, jumping off the chair set up in front of the motor bed.
Almost die, he comments.
I wasn't going to die,
says Jacket Guy, massaging the back of his neck.
Get a doctor in here. I need to get back to work.
Tommy ever learn?
Moto asks him. Jacket Guy stops moving, considering him. The boy is wearing a baggy tank top over basketball shorts that almost reach his ankles. They were Jacket Guy's clothes, even though Jacket Guy, until this very moment, has never been seen wearing anything but his jacket and a pair of slick, dark-wash jeans.
Learn what?
Jacket Guy says glumly.
Emoto, bad man.
Emoto, demon head.
You don't know anything.
Jacket Guy lets out his breath.
I had this under control until Torrance sold us out.
Moto is silent for another moment. Then, in a burst of fury, he balls his fist and punches Jacket Guy clean in the stomach. It is an expert display of the self-defense tactics Jacket Guy had spent a short montage teaching Moto in the previous episode's cold open, and is massively effective. Jacket Guy doubles up in agony, catching Moto's next fist.
Moto! Jesus, stop it!
Tommy not learn! Moto shouts. Tommy play game with Emoto! Tommy lose!
They stop moving as quickly as they started. Moto bows his head, his shoulders quaking. Jacket Guy listens, helpless, to the little boy's cries escaping his mouth.
No one,
Moto says, barely a whisper. Jacket Guy knows what this means. He is thinking, undoubtedly, of the mid-episode tantrum Moto had thrown near the end of Mercy for the Damned, in which Jacket Guy had attempted to explain to him what had happened to his parents. Barely 6 months have passed between then and now. Moto's parents are still unaccounted for. Sometimes, Jacket Guy reasons, it was not so cruel to let Moto be human. He reaches out, straining the IV needle in his wrist in the process, and takes hold of the boy's shoulder.
This was my fault, he says. I know. Okay? I know. I'm sorry.
What if Tommy die?
I'm not going to die.
Lie.
Jacket Guy squeezes the boy's shoulder briefly.
I don't lie to you. Not ever.
Something strange has happened, then. As Jacket Guy opens his mouth to speak, Moto crumples, falling into his arms. There is a brief moment in which Jacket Guy reacts stiffly to the boy's arms around his neck, seemingly unable to understand, while Moto cries little tears of relief into his hospital gown. It is apparent, in this moment, that Jacket Guy does not habitually show love, perhaps because he has never been shown it in the first place. It follows. An apathy intrinsic to his character has completed its transmogrification into something warm, for once, and forever. Jacket Guy puts his hand on the back of Moto's head, holding him there, prepared, he realizes, to hold him for as long as the boy asks. Hal made them grilled cheese for dinner, peeling slices of Kraft American from the refrigerator and leaving a mess of burned butter in the pan when he was done, the smell of which permeated the entire kitchen where they sat and seemed, almost, to flavor their bites. The three of them ate while the television droned. It had been on all day. It was the first Christmas that Beau could remember in which nobody had come over, short of several phone calls from his aunt and uncles.
Everything is going to be okay, baby,
they said to him, and explained that once the snow cleared, they would be on the first flight available to come help out. Beau didn't ask what his aunt meant by help out, nor did he really hear their words. Like most of the noise, Kaz's included, he had tuned it out and watched 6 episodes of Jacket Guy straight through, sticking to a patch midway through Season 1, while Kaz screamed about the kite that wouldn't take to the wind outside. Beau, Hal said, hopefully, how about I watch with you after dinner? He smiled. Beau took his eyes off his food.
I'm tired.
Hal put his lips together, but nothing more. He nodded. You've got a lot of schoolwork, don't you? New Year's coming up really fast. Yeah. Seriously, it makes me mad they give you so much homework. I mean, is it Christmas or not? Appa, Bo said. He couldn't eat any more. Hal had been about to continue. They looked at each other. Hal attempted a laugh, and its hollowness hung stark in the air. He picked up his glass, nearly empty. I'm trying here, Bo. Trying what? Bo said. His face had grown hot. He would cry soon. He knew it was a matter of time and wanted to get his words out first. What are you doing? Hal gave him a second. He looked so docile, holding the second triangle of his evenly divided sandwich in both hands. Kaz hadn't heard a thing, and was aiming with a pointed forefinger and curled thumb at the top of his glass of milk, as though shooting a sniper rifle. Don't you think we should be trying to have fun today? Hal asked him. No, Bo said quickly. This doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. Stupid, Kaz repeated. Appa, can you make snowmen with me after dinner? Bo, that's not how we talk. We don't talk about anything, Bo said, balling his fists under the table. You're trying to pretend to be happy, and it's not true. You're a liar. This would have earned him a slap on the face. He knew this, and still said it. Somehow he had worked himself into the kind of blind anger that resulted in things like this. Hal set his food down, a sad look on his face. You told me you'd try. Appa, Bo's mad, Kaz said, grinning. Bo's gonna get in trouble. Shut up, Kaz. Bo. Hal's voice cut deep, suddenly low. Knock that off, right now. Apologize to him. Bo stared at him, tears streaming his face. No! Trouble! Kaz sang, clapping his hands. I said shut up, Kaz! You shut up, Bo. I want to tell the truth, Bo said. I want to talk about Uma. Bo, I promise you, Hal said, his eyes pleading. We will talk about her after I figure out what to do. This isn't... Uma's not going to let you watch TV, Kaz said. He raised his hand, intending to bring it down on the table for emphasis, but Bo had already grabbed it, before he realized what he was doing, and twisted it hard. Kaz screamed, almost falling off his chair. Get off! Get off! Bo! Uma's dead, Kaz! Bo shouted, beating back the kicks Kaz had aimed at him. Uma's dead! Uma's dead! Stop it! Kaz shrieked, his face gone scarlet. Bo held on until his hand was ripped away. Kaz crumbled to the floor, pounding his fists. Bo was dragged out of the kitchen by his father, up the stairs, into the bedroom. Kaz's screams reverberated through the walls. Hal slammed the door behind them. In the dark, Bo couldn't see just how angry he was, but the strength of Hal's hand on his bicep was crushing him. Let go of me, he choked, trying and failing not to make his stuttering cries. I hate you! I hate you! Hal only stopped him breaking free and caught his other hand when he tried to flail a punch. They struggled until Bo fell limp, exhausted. His limbs were on fire. He breathed gasps into the corner of his bed. After a while, Hal let him go. When Bo looked up, he saw the black silhouette of his father's head framed by moonlight, soft snow falling outside. Hal took in his breath many times over the course of a minute, each time saying nothing. They were both shaking. After another minute, Hal had regained his breath. Their silence allowed Kaz's shrieks to be heard at full volume downstairs. There were a number of things Bo knew he deserved for his behavior, not excluding any amount of yelling and screaming in which his father wanted to indulge, from the look on his face. He wanted it too. He wanted something other than silence. But Hal turned to leave, doubling back. He raised his hands above his head, flinging them downward. I can't... He started. I can't believe you, Bo. He tried again to leave and stopped himself. You... He choked. You... At last, he opened the door, illuminating his face. I don't want to see you for the rest of the night. I don't care. Hal looked at him a moment longer, then shut the door. Bo stood in the center of the room, alight, and heard his father's footsteps down the stairs. Kaz's crying stopped soon after. He was so angry he was beginning to shiver. He paced his room, stopping once to rip the blankets from his bed, then from Kaz's. He stopped at the window. It came to him quickly, before he knew what he was doing. He couldn't hear anything downstairs, no voices or movement. He retrieved the hat, gloves, and jacket from his closet and put them on. He returned to the window and dug his fingers under it. The wind buffeted him as soon as an inch was clear. He got it open to allow about 10 inches, then shimmied himself through, head first. He came out on the side of the roof and, steadying himself, continued the way to the overlooking tree. There was a 2-foot gap between the trunk and the end of the gutter. He steeled himself, planting his feet, then took a running leap and hit the tree trunk, wrapping his legs around it as though climbing a rope. His weight sagged it to the right. He scooted himself down the trunk, then let go, tumbling onto a dirty snowbank in which his legs sunk up to the knee. He stopped himself, glancing over his shoulder at the windows. He would not even remember their faces. He wouldn't spend another second thinking about them and would be happy to stay true to his word as long as he lived. He dug himself out of the snow, rolling onto his back, then got up. He reached the clear patch of their driveway, then the sidewalk, then the street, crossed the road at the stop sign, and ran against the wind until his ears burned like hot coals. The demon head, staggering, holding a knife wound on his thigh closed as he runs, escapes through the back end. Yes, okay. One sec. We'll take that from the top. The demon head, staggering, holding a knife wound on his thigh closed as he runs, escapes through the back-end bowels of the shipping warehouse, and Jacket Guy follows, both hands on his pistol. The torn epaulette of his jacket tatters in the wind. A large cut above his eye has bled down the side of his face. This scene, following quick and successive cuts by wide-angle cameras placed in crooked positions along the walls, progressing among the dark, stacked pallets, is the culmination, the season finale that would serve as series wrap, episode 24, The Doorway, of a massive 20-minute abduction scene in which Jacket Guy has been brought to the Macaulay shipyards after being black-bagged just outside the precinct. There, he had come face-to-face with Chen Shi, a thin man with wispy black hair, dressed in a sharp, custom-tailored suit with no tie. With several rifles aimed at his head, Jacket Guy had had no choice but to listen to a lengthy monologue concerning the whereabouts of the counterfeit bills. About the counterfeit bills, the demon head was currently in the process of shipping through his network to China, where, lost in the shadowy imports system, he will escape unconfronted. "You don't belong here," the demon head had said to him, drawing close enough for their faces to be 6 inches apart. He spoke over-enunciated English with a slight British accent, having escaped extradition to the United Kingdom the decade before. Jacket Guy glares defiantly back, his hands secured around the back of his chair. You are a sickness. You think you have power over me, over my businesses. There is nothing I won't do to protect my assets. You white cops are all the same, thinking you speak for us. How many of us have you slaughtered? Do you know the number?" "I don't speak for anybody but myself," Jacket Guy had said to him. "You're a fool," the demon head spat. He fingered a forearm-length knife in his hand. "You don't understand the reaches of my rage. I am a calm man, a reasonable man, but I will punish you to the ends of the earth. Better to make an example for the next who stumbles into my way. How shall I do it? Take your fingers off, your nose, start at your feet. Perhaps it doesn't matter. By the end, any which way I choose, I will be your God." The words had fallen like shattered plates, one after the other. There have been countless moments like it, situations in which Jacket Guy faced certain death, but always, there had been a way out. Something this viewer had habitually missed, but realized, upon re-watchings, had always been there. A suspicious call on the payphone outside. A sidearm stowed in a pant leg. Jacket Guy always had a way out. Not this time. What had fallen after these heinous words was the notion... What had fallen after these heinous words was the notion that were Jacket Guy to be killed right then, there would be nothing to stop the demon head from bribing more officers at the precinct, from conscripting more men and women of Little China into his shadowy business of violence, from finding the one who had escaped, Moto, and extinguishing the spark of the last living threat to his plans. And yet, Jacket Guy had smiled at this. It was easy, with the flashlights crossing his face, to witness the ease of his charm. The music had swelled, then died instantly. All eyes had been fixed, breath held, for him to speak. At last, he spoke.
"That's the funny thing, Mr. Shi. There is no God."
A bang and a crash had sounded through the warehouse. A police cruiser had charged straight through the wall, over the floor, and hit Shi's 2 bodyguards square in the back. They had sprawled across the floor like rag dolls. Jacket Guy launched himself out of his chair, tackling Shi to the floor. There they had struggled, the knife sinking into Shi's thigh before Jacket Guy was kicked in the head, the scene spinning for several distorted moments. As Jacket Guy's backup converged on the scene, Jacket Guy had grabbed a discarded pistol and followed Shi out the door, through cluttered boxes and containers that glistened like crystals under the swinging lamplights. They reached the end of the warehouse, a locked door. Shi spins around, raising his hands. His face is red, livid at his failure. The doorway that gives this finale episode its title, is closed to him. Jacket Guy raises his gun.
"Kill me," Shi says, spitting blood. "Give me a reason, and I will,"
Jacket Guy says, a sound that almost escapes him like the bark of a dog. He is thinking of his lover, the journalist, who lies bloated and blue-lipped in the morgue.
"I swear to you."
"You don't have it," Shi taunts him, as footsteps converge.
"You don't know anything about me," Jacket Guy says. 5 seconds, I could do it. I'd waste you and nobody would know a thing."
They watch each other, tense. The music is near deafening at this point. The camera lingers on a close-up of Jacket Guy's face. It appears, certainly, that he is about to pull the trigger. It is an action he has performed without question hundreds of times before. The outcome seems a near inevitability. Yet, after one more second, Jacket Guy blinks, then lowers his gun. Police converge behind him. 2 officers wrench Shi's arms behind his head and guide him away. The 2 men are given enough time, as they pass each other, for something clear, an electric charge, to occur between them. It is a confrontation that has built suspense, held breath over almost 20 episodes, that has come, finally, to this moment. This viewer is waiting for the last word, something that may at last suggest the final balance of their struggle. But they exchange a look, no words, and, as quickly as the black bag has slipped over Jacket Guy But they exchange a look, no words, and, as quickly as the black bag had slipped over Jacket Guy's eyes just 20 minutes earlier, the scene cuts to black. Bo ran as fast as he could, squinting his eyes against the icy wind. He marked the trees that passed, the houses. The neighborhood slowly melted away, until, surrounded by darkness, he could no longer place where he was. He slowed to a stop. He had taken several turns in the road on a whim and found himself deep within a suburb he didn't recognize. He spun on the spot, looking around him. In the distance, he thought he heard a car, but the roads were empty. Each of the houses surrounding him were dark, not even their trees lit. Jacket Guy debriefs in his commanding officer's office. Flecked with blood, nursing a knife wound on his forearm, there is a simple finality to the scene, one in which the case has been solved, the enemy apprehended. Jacket Guy has won himself a night's rest, another season. The jungle has returned to a state of peace.
You had a chance to kill him, didn't you?
Jacket Guy's commanding officer said. Jacket Guy doesn't respond.
Why didn't you?
Jacket Guy raises his head, and on his face, unmistakable, is a little smile. And oddly enough, to this viewer it has always been plain. It is this moment that this viewer can pinpoint, the moment in which a terrible sense of foreboding has always invaded. The smile is too comfortable, the music too heightened.
"I'm going home," he said, getting to his feet. "Kid's probably driven Mrs. Abramova up the wall by now."
What's that?
Jacket Guy's commanding officer frowns, looking at him.
You change your mind or something? You told her to put him to bed at your place before you left. She left a message an hour ago.
Jacket Guy's eyes stay focused, the camera closing in to follow his face. A brief, honest look of confusion. Then it dawns on them both.
"Oh, God."
The wind blew violently around him. The shadows cast by the trees looked like fingers along the asphalt. He was very, very alone. He breathed, first shorter, then harder. He doubled back, running down the street he'd come from. Something terrifying had seized in the pit of his stomach. He glanced all around him, the darkened faces of the houses. He felt a chill up his back. Jacket Guy forces his way into the lobby of his building, bounding by two up the stairs to the 4th floor. He sees it before he reaches the landing, the door to his apartment ajar, a crack in the doorframe where the lock has been bashed open. Beau started to cry, heaving wails that seemed to flood from his lungs. He ran faster and faster, searching, desperate for familiar houses, a street, anything. He rounded the corner of a curb, felt the dip in the pavement too late, and caught his foot on the concrete. He was airborne, falling, collided with a nasty crack on his right hand, palm out. He rolled onto the ground, drawing in his wrist. He glanced at it. He'd landed on a twig that had embedded itself deep into his palm. He whimpered, unable to scream. When he tried to straighten his wrist, the pain shot through his arm like an injection of molten steel. This time, he screamed. Jacket Guy bounds through the broken door into the wreckage of his apartment. His table lies overturned, cabinets rifled. The floor is strewn with broken pieces of china. "Moto!" he shouts, entering the bedroom, spotting the blankets and sheets in crumples on the floor. The window broken open, letting in the cold night air. Jacket Guy falls to his knees. "Moto," he whispers, unable to rage. His eyes are wide, his face a mask of terror. "No," he whispers. "No, no." And then he says it. Jacket Guy's last words. The last words the show ever airs. Words that live forever in this viewer's mind, synonymous with a certain kind of despair that feels, in the moment, unending. And it is not the revelation that the Demon Head's network of criminals has somehow formed a contingency plan and successfully kidnapped Moto from under Jacket Guy's watch, but rather the idea that Moto, in the moments before he was hauled, kicking and screaming out of the window, had called out for him and had not been saved, that makes Jacket Guy speak the words as the credits roll. "There wasn't enough time. There wasn't enough time, Moto. There wasn't enough time." For the record, I would watch the hell out of this show, by the way. This is the kind of show I would have watched, thought was a fever dream, and then, like, seen as an adult many, many years later and been like, my God, they really knew how to write back then, didn't they? Chapter 10. I weighed it in my hand, counting the number of times it rang before going to voicemail. Kaz had never called me, not once, not since we'd put our dad in the nursing network 4 years ago. To be fair, I hadn't reached out either. We fought bitterly about our father, what he needed, what we could provide. Seeing his name used to fill me with dread. I'd be fucked up for days afterward. It surprised me that his number was still the same. Often he was moving around too much to bother using his own phone. Recently he'd been calling from friends' houses, numbers I didn't recognize. Detroit, Culver City, Menlo Park. He was working, I imagined. I didn't know for sure. The last time I'd heard of him, genuinely, was when he'd been arrested in Austin last year. I'd been in the office when the police reached my phone, asking for the last place of residence I knew he'd maintained. I told them I didn't know. Could I talk to him? I asked, just about too late, and was denied anyway. Admittedly, I'd breathed a sigh of relief. It had been his first arrest that I knew of. It was a wonder he'd made it so long in the first place. The charge was petty theft. He'd said while being booked that he needed money to pay his dealer. Cocaine, or maybe marijuana. It was pussy stuff, certainly nothing to try and rob a bodega for. He wasn't exactly tweaking. In the end, he'd been put out on probation. I told the police I'd reach out if I heard anything concerning, but he never called. It had been the same ever since he finished school, moving around, driving wherever he pleased. Oh, that's a comma. It had been the same ever since he finished school, moving around, driving wherever he pleased, I imagined, getting bored, or tired, or both, and moving on, working barista jobs and night custodian gigs. When I got curious every now and then, I found him on Facebook, which he'd stopped updating seriously around 2015, but still posted pictures on every now and then. An empty road. The tops of 2 sneakers, his, caked with black dirt. We were too far apart in age for me to have genuinely grown up with him, not in the way that would have let me make much sense of him. That was the strange thing about leaving. Leaving home, leaving school, never looking back, leaving him behind, and our father. When I thought of his face, I saw the face of a 4-year-old, still. A kid with no means to express much of anything, or rather, nothing I could really understand. Did he think about me? He wasn't easy to talk to. There were barriers there that had in recent times begun to feel like crutches, things we couldn't function without despite the distance they created. It was sad. Of course it was. But I'd stopped feeling at fault for the way we were. It was what I told myself. I put my phone back on the counter and hadn't even turned around before it rang again. I waited again until it lay silent. A voicemail popped up on the screen. My kitchen was dark, still empty of light that had not quite reached over the tops of the city through my windows. I turned on the lights. The place, cloaked in black and white marble, had acquired a layer of dust I hadn't noticed before. I ran a finger through it, squinting at the gray fuzz that accumulated underneath. It was quiet. I glanced at the clock, almost 8:15. I was going to be late. I stepped over to the windows and looked straight down, saw the black roof of the car already there. I turned, spun on the spot, looking around this apartment, white walls, no pictures. Not a single piece of the furniture I remembered from the shoebox I'd lived in before. Before what? Before the job. I blinked. Before the job. Before Flux. And where had I been before that? It took several seconds for the word to form. Metropole. Monthly arts and fashion periodical pivoted from news magazine in the late 80s after its acquisition by conglomerate. This month's cover star, an art house twink named Hadrian Haubert, wearing the ugliest shag carpet coat I'd ever seen off his shoulders and crusted shadow smeared all over his eyes like... My phone was ringing again. I approached it, slowly, and saw it was the front desk down in the lobby calling. I picked it up. Hello? Good morning, sir. The girl, I knew her voice, the one with the long earrings, was perking up through the speaker.
Just wanted to make sure you knew your car was waiting downstairs. I'll tell the driver you're on your way down.
I told her yes. She hung up. An inch of sunlight had come past the clouds and was hitting me straight in the face. I blinked, screwing up my eyes, dug my palms into each socket, cocked my head left and right, forward and back, trying to work feeling into my joints. I popped my wrist several times, as though assuring myself with the noise it made. I put on my shoes, looped my belt bag around my shoulder, and headed downstairs. The girl with the long earrings waved at me, smiling, and was about to speak when I sped past her, out the doors and onto the curb. The car's back door opened for me, and I slid inside. My driver, gazing over his shoulder at me over the top of his sunglasses, watched me fumble with my seatbelt. "Sorry," I told him.
Happens to the best of us.
"I didn't mean to keep you."
It happens to the best of us,
my driver repeated himself, cutting me off. Without another word, he punched the gas and sped us away from the curb. We listened to the hum of the wheels on the asphalt beneath us, the car's engine under the level of a whisper. I watched the dense portion of the city where my condo building was nestled fall away slightly as we reached the bridge and the water below it. I tried not to look when the ground around us fell away, opening out. We seemed to be climbing into the sky, the way it just vanished from underneath us like that. I opened the window, flooding the car with rushed air. We were approaching the turnoff onto the ramps. I took deep breaths, filling my lungs, but my head still spun.
Happens to the best of us.
"Hey," I choked, turning my driver's head. I'd never learned his name. "I'm sorry, can I get out?"
Something wrong?
"Nothing," I said. "Just feeling kinda sick, stomach stuff. I'll call in." We slowed to a stop on the shoulder, near the bridge's midpoint. I wrenched away my seatbelt, dizzy, and almost ate it falling out of the car, steadying myself.
I could drive you back,
my driver offered. It was the most words we'd ever exchanged. Cars whooshed past us. Some honked their horns. I shook my head. "It'll be good for me to walk," I told him. "Really. Thank you." I waited, not sure of how long or what was said afterward, but with some time, the door shut again, and the car pulled away, joining the line of traffic. I hopped the divider onto the pedestrian path along the asphalt, turned the other way, walking back toward the city. The wind howled freely around here, in the open air, vibrating the bridge cables, the pavement under my feet. I walked quickly, firing my legs. There were steps leading off down to the riverside parks, populated at this hour by joggers, a couple walking their dogs. I'm not sure if that's a couple walking their dogs, or a couple, like a couple as in a unit of people, or a couple as in a measurement of people. You could read it either way, honestly. Although I think it... Well, no, you could have multiple dogs. Sorry. 1 sec. I don't think you read the line significantly differently aloud, but still. A point of consideration. Where were we? There were steps leading off down to the riverside parks, populated at this hour by joggers, a couple walking their dogs. By the water, I sat on a bench, digging the heels of my hands into my thighs. It was colder than I'd imagined. It had been a week since I'd started at Flux. Just enough time to move my things into the new apartment. The car ride was so new. I hadn't been paying attention to the last couple of times we'd crossed the bridge. This was an area of the city I didn't know very well. I looked around. Gray-green water lapped at the edges of the walkways. I remembered Io's visit to the headquarters, Lev's gift, the jacket that hung in my closet. My birthday. My birthday. That had been February. I glanced down at my phone. Under the clock, above the voicemail still untouched from my brother, I read, April 4. When had I lost my job? 3 days before Christmas. It is Christmas. It's 3 days from now. We're all supposed to be off for vacation. I was in Gil's office the morning he told me we'd all been bought out by Francis Corp. I remembered the look on Gil's face as I'd said that to him. Gil. I opened our last messages, expecting something. It had been radio silence for nearly 4 months, since the day I'd left his office, the day I'd come down to the mall, and... My phone rang. Lev was calling. I picked up. "Big boy," he said. There was gay electronic music blasting behind his voice, the sounds of exalted breaths moving as one, the rhythm of cultish exercise. "Can you hear me? I'm spinning. You sick? What's going on?" "Yeah," I found myself speaking. I'm sorry, Lev. I can't come in today. Something I ate. Feel like shit." "That's just fine, bub. You just let me know if I can do anything." He paused. "You home?" "No, I was on my way in and decided to turn around. I'm walking back." "That's what the car's for, big boy. Why didn't you just ask him to drive you back?" "I needed some air," I said. It wasn't a lie. "I'll be fine. Just want to walk home and sleep." Somewhere in the background, I heard the crowd of Lev's classmates yell as one, "I am beautiful! I am worthy!" "I'll send another car." "It's okay, Lev." "Are you—" "Do your class, Lev." I faked a laugh, my head spinning. "I'll be fine." I hung up before he could say anything else. Waited. When he didn't try to call back, I stood, pacing the little square park along the water. Where had I been? I couldn't remember anymore. Gil, the elevator, the date. I hadn't pictured the name, her face, in the longest time. Min. I was halfway downtown. South another 30 blocks, and I would find myself at the boutique where I'd met her, where I'd... My hand came to rest. Came to rest of the leather cord. It must be a misprint. Where did that sentence start? South another 30 blocks, and I would find myself at the boutique where I'd met her, where I'd... My hand came to rest on the leather corded strap around my shoulder, the bag she'd sold me. I was waking up on a regular schedule. I saw the corner of my phone as the clearest, poking out under my pillar. Let's try that again. I was waking up on a regular schedule. I saw the corner of my phone the clearest, poking out under my pillow. Reaching for it, taking my shower, resting my head against the white marble, trying to work feeling into my skull. Dressing, coming downstairs. The girl in the lobby's earrings, silver with little charm trinkets on the ends. I wondered if she ever changed them out. Did she sleep in them? Did they rust in the shower? The car, the drive over the bridge, down into Flux's car park, through the revolving glass doors, my ID swiped across the blonde boy's desk, the dining concourse, the sky bridges. The elevator up to the 10th floor, across the last bridge to my office, shutting myself inside. Inside my office. Inside my office. Like running again and again into a wall, tricking myself into believing something different there. There was nothing there. Nothing afterward each and every time. I had stopped walking, clenching my fists. "Fuck, fuck, fuck," I whispered, closing my eyes. Begging. Something. There had to be something. It ended there. Every morning, there in the office, the clock strikes 9 and... It came quickly to me. The strobe lights inside Dream. Rye's voice echoed on itself, compounded by noise all around us. The bathroom. The guys blowing each other in the stall next to me. "I love you." The go-go boy's tongue forcing its way into the pocket of my cheek. The street. The waiting crowd. The helicopter. The pool. The house. The smell of Cody's vomit on my lap, his nose pressed against the back of my neck where we lay in bed together. I took out my phone. I had come to the alarm and what I'd read on it. Try the 1%. Try the 1%. Try the 1%. 1 in 10 American households were food insecure. Marches had happened all over the country over the last year in which the words, "Try the 1%, had been written on placards, chanted for hours in the street. Try meant something hopeful. Sue, litigate, prosecute. The wealthy hoarded food, land, energy itself, and it would continue to get worse. The outages would continue unless something was done. Try the 1% meant take the motherfuckers to motherfucking court over this bullshit. There had been a name, a signature. I'd deleted the alarm but could see it where I'd lain with Cody's arms around me. Gem. I didn't know any gems. Had it been somebody's initials? And who could have said it, if not for me? I started walking. The wind had picked up around my legs. I was going farther uptown, toward the building. I squinted at the skyline. I could place it among the other towers and walked haphazardly. I could think here. A loop, a closed circuit that had lain broken and was now made whole. And it had brought me back somewhere. Back to April, 4 months I had spent in a removed place. Back to you. Do you remember what it was like to hold that kid in your arms the first time? Did you know? There would be only 18 more episodes after Season 2, Episode 6, Mercy for the Damned, in which you rescued him from the gutted remains of the antiques shop his family had abandoned him in. Moto would be in every single episode after that. The writers committed. This was going to be a new show. You can see it in the way they treated you afterward. You became so much of a hero that they gave you a villain, the crime boss the thugs and cronies call the Demon Head, who sends the precinct those bloody roses with the note, warning you, stay out of his way or face consequences. The first thing you do isn't something cheeky, the way that I'd imagine you would have the first season. You're being sent roses by a mob boss, and you'd have something dumb and slick to say about it under normal circumstances. Something awesome like, guy hasn't even met me for dinner yet. But the show has changed. The first thing you do is look over at that little kid crumpling the paperwork on your desk because he's bored. What are you thinking about? Your commanding officer, douche cop, they're wondering what in the fuck's name you're thinking, taking this kid out of Little China. There was no place for him here, certainly no room for him in your life, in your shitty apartment. But it doesn't escape you. Moto's parents are dead or long gone from the city, and maybe at that point it doesn't matter, because either way they will not come back for him. What am I doing, Raider? Where did it all go? I was thinking, then, about something I remembered Lev had said, maybe the first time we met, maybe afterward. A myth about the world's energy consumption, that a system that did not work anymore had been accepted, and there seemed to be no alternative plan. Until Io, that was. There was the idea that of the lifetime generators, machines that could power entire buildings, city blocks. Once they cracked the technology, the world would change. It was inevitable. Something like that you couldn't understand. We were on the cusp of something unbelievable. It involved brain waves and electrochemical processes between synapses. Lev had walked me through it. The images were getting foggy. Even now, looking back, it was hard for me to remember, to parse through the noise in my head, and there was, always so much noise. I had come to a block that I recognized. The corner, a facade of glass and expensive concrete that jutted like a blade straight into the sky. I stepped inside, adjusting my eyes to the light. The girl at the desk was on the phone, but angled her head toward me. She hung up. Everything okay? I came to the desk, the pink salt tableau behind her. She had arranged her face into one of concern, but her eyes stayed flat and still. Sick, I managed to say, and headed for the elevators, feeling her eyes on the back of my neck. The apartment sprang to light when I stepped inside, hanging my belt bag in its spot on my door, and slipped off my shoes. I checked the time, 9:10. Still, Kaz's voicemail shone out onto my face. I waited, long enough for the screen to go dark, then woke it again, then waited, in a cycle after which I made the decision, pressed it, held it up to my ear. I heard static first, movement as though he were dragging his phone across Velcro.
Hey, Bo. He coughed. I tried to reach you just now, a couple times. I know it's early, or whatever. We haven't talked in a bit. Can we,
His voice was dipping in and out of focus, as though the connection had wavered.
want to talk with you soon, if I can. If you can. I'm in the area. Let me know. It's Kaz.
It went silent, then clinked. I stayed listening a while after that, as though I'd wanted to be sure he'd really gone. I shut myself inside the bedroom and collapsed onto my mattress with my clothes on. I'd been dreaming about my mother. I hadn't seen her face in a long time. Dad kept photos of her around the house, but never talked about her again, not seriously. There would be memories, little hints of things we had forgotten, but not much more. Sometimes I wondered if he was thankful that he was beginning to forget all of it, if at some point he would eventually forget her and not have to think about the way she died anymore, that he might even hope for it at this point. It was always the same in my dreams, every time, the back of her head on the curb, waiting for the bus to pass, just outside the school. Holding our lunches, Kaz's and mine, in her hand, that she'd brought from home. It wasn't like me to forget something like that. I'd brought our lunches every morning, never forgot them once on the counter until that morning. It happened each time, almost every night I slept and dreamed, that I could reach out my hand, just barely, and touch the end of her finger, her palm, her wrist hanging at her waist. Did I remember what she sounded like anymore? Did I recall the way she made Kaz and me watch the Korean language version of some of the movies we had at home? The way she had made us do it because we needed to practice speaking? I'd rebelled, hadn't I? I'd said something to the effect of, I wouldn't need to speak Korean when I was older. Nobody around me spoke it, not my friends, not my teachers. There wasn't going to be a point, I'd argued, and pouted, and, in the end, obliged, just like I always had. I closed my eyes. I wanted to see her again, wanted to re-enter that old moment, her on the pavement, reaching my hand out to touch hers, wondering if she could feel it, wondering if she could hear me call for her. I woke. My alarm was blaring. I could see the edge of my phone half under my pillow and dug it out, silencing it. I raised myself off my sheets, turning my head in slow, careful circles. My limbs were sore. I'd wandered aimlessly, switching the television on and off, closing my eyes, drifting off for an hour, for two, then waking up again. Lev would ask, how had I spent my sick day? I'd make up something about shitting my guts out, downing a liter of ginger ale from the convenience store. He'd make fun of me for it, and I'd laugh about it. I dressed for work, took my new jacket off the hanger and put it on, saw myself downstairs. The girl with the earrings wasn't at her usual spot, and instead of a substitute, the desk was empty. I paused there, in front of the salt sculpture, looking around. The lobby was quiet, empty. I stepped outside. The car was waiting. My driver nodded at me as I climbed inside. "Stomach bug," he commented. "Something like that. All gone," I said. He nodded. He dropped me off outside the turnstiles into F1. I stepped inside. The blonde kid swiped my ID, especially bored-looking this morning, and waved me inside. I came up to my office. My ears rang as the door swung closed, and the echo of the atrium outside was cut short. I'd made it with 3 minutes to spare. I set down my bag, crossed the room to the pantry, and poured myself breakfast. In the fridge, I saw my jug of whole milk, neat and full, alongside skim, 1%, and almond. My hand lingered inches from the hole. The jugs were tempered glass, stuck with neat labels of their contents. I spent a second too long looking at them all, remembering what I'd read on my phone. Try the 1%. Try the 1%. As in the pithy catchphrase I'd seen popping up all over Twitter, the wealth wars, billionaire presidents and congressmen. Thousands had marched on the Chamber of Commerce just a few weeks before Christmas. I'd seen the coverage on TV that night. But try the 1%. It didn't mean... I grabbed the third jug from the left, carrying it to my desk. It was a blaring difference between 1% milk and whole, an egregious difference that escapes children trying to decide between them that I'd only discovered right then and there, watching that gray milk water fill my bowl. Absolutely disgusting. There was nothing right about 1% milk, absolutely nothing. I laughed. What did it matter, anyway? I was going to drown the entire thing with cinnamon sugar, anyway. I held the jug in my hands. This was stupid. Imagine the hinging of everything I had been looking for on my choice of milk with my morning cereal. I poured. I sat down, making myself level with the windows looking out over the trees. I ate quickly, draining the bowl. 30 seconds to 9. 20. From across the sky bridge, I saw Lev in his office, on the phone, pacing the white rug. He saw me out of the corner of his eye, raised a hand. 10 seconds. 9. 8. This is what I told you about. This is where it started. I promised I'd get you there, and I'm doing it, and I don't know anymore whether it's because you need to know or because I need to hear it again. I know it doesn't matter. I know you don't understand, that you're not real, that only I, by speaking, make you real, and only to me. But you're all I have. Isn't that funny? You. You. I was staring at the clock when the second hand reached the 12. The time became 9 sharp. Thinking about you, about her, when a sledgehammer flying at light speed hit the back of my head, and the last thing I saw before it went white was her face. I am in a waking place between lightness and the dark. Grayness around that fills corners, morphs into shapes in front of me, breaking form, interrupting their own lines. Static, black and gray. I turn my head to each side, moving forward and backward, grasping fingers on empty spaces. I have fingers again. I can feel their movement through something. Not air. Not water. I raise my arm, hold it out in front of me, the tips of my fingers sparking, shifting a frame or two to the left, then the right, up and down, then not at all. There is nothing before or after, only me. I wish, in my mind, for something to look at. The back of my head throbs from the hit I've taken. It is clear in my memory, the weight of it when it landed and sent me out of the world. Shapes appear, sifted like particles, converging on each other, interfering waves creating matter. Clear lines, a floor, walls, a ceiling. Whiteness, grays, clears, and blacks becoming sharper. There is a floor under my foot when I take my first step. Hard and solid, I hear the distortion my shoe makes as my heel hits the surface, then another. 2 steps. Glass walls. Shapes behind them coming into focus. I am standing in the middle of my office. It is mine, I know, from the arrangement of the fridge and pantry on the other side, the wet bar, the white cushion couches, and coffee table. If I look at anything long enough, its particles begin to dissociate, blending back into black and white static. I keep my eyes moving, a figure traversing quicksand, trying not to stay in one place. It's my office. I have not left my office. Above, in front of me, I see the clock, 1 minute past 9, second hand crossing the 6 at the bottom of the clock face. Outside the glass walls, things get fuzzier. I can almost keep them in focus when I squint hard, think cleanly of what I'm supposed to find outside. When I do, the office around me begins to dissolve. I keep moving, keep my head turning. I remember the word Lev had used. Commute. There is something, I strain, that I've forgotten, something about that meeting that I can't picture anymore. It was a word Lev used for something that involved me, something that was supposed to happen. I turn on the spot, looking for my desk, and see it. See him, rather. A body, hunched over, resting its head on its forearms. Cereal bowl beside, tipped over, spoon scattered inches away, flecking the remaining drops of sugary milk across the tabletop. It is, me. I am backing away, steps growing wider. My hands come up in front of my face. I want to get away from the thing in my chair as fast as possible. My mouth is open in a scream. The coffee table hits the back of my knee. I feel my upended gravity pulling me backward. I twist, trying to throw out my arms. Out of the corner of my eye, I see the floor coming up to meet me become particles, white scratches of static. My hands enter it first, fall straight through. My head goes after. I am spinning in the air, trying to land, falling through nothing. Everything is white, turning and swirling around me. I want to tuck my knees in, brace for what comes. I am remembering the way the walls had phased away when I stopped picturing them. In a simple movement, it clicks. It makes sense. I scramble, running through words in my head as I continue downward. Walls, floor, stop, floor, ground, My legs buckle. My knees buckle. I've stopped falling and slammed my feet into something solid. I come down onto my hands. I've nearly bashed my head open on the floor. I settle, pressing myself to the floor. I'm almost laughing. I raise my head, looking around. Out of the gray fuzz, chairs and manicured palm trees set every few yards. Storefronts, walkways above me, the giant glass ceiling. Behind me, the elevator, doors closed. Lights strung up along the columns and palm trees. Christmas. I'm in the mall, the lobby of the conglomerate's headquarters. They start as shadows coming out of the framework, taking shape, becoming solid. People passing as I steady myself back on my feet. Color begins to seep into the area, first garish, then more muted, the tan floors, bright flash signs, and showrooms. At the other end of the atrium, the bright little boutique. I keep walking. Sounds fill in alongside me, the echoes of footsteps and conversation vaulted back by the glass roof. I keep walking toward it, looking for her. It's almost taken shape now, the entirety of it. The whiteness all around has leaked away and left almost everything the way I remembered. The boutique is open. Soft jazz filters in through the speakers. I stop by the doors, blinking. There is another girl at the glass counters with the wallets, but it's not her. I crane my neck, looking farther inside. I hear steps behind me, turn just as I see her enter, sidestepping me on her way into the boutique. Min takes the bag slung off her shoulder and stows it behind the counter, giving a sleepy good morning to the other girl. I watch her pull the hat off her head, take her coat and bag and turn, headed for the doors to the back. She turns her head, almost catching sight of me, but I've ducked behind the wall. I continue, taking more steps, watching the world go white again. The floor is changing, becoming carpet, walls shifting closer, ceiling coming way down. Fluorescent lights above me. I've gone 10 feet when the color returns. I pass a desk on the corner of the stack of the week's magazines. Hadrian Halbert's cover sits prim and neat on the topmost issue. I stop, picking it up. Look at you! I freeze, turning around. I know her face over the top of the pod dividers we used to keep in the office instead of real walls. Lee? ? Clears her throat, and I glimpse the ring on her left hand when the light hits it. Her face freezes every few seconds, her mouth moving but nothing else. I didn't know you changed for work, she says. Do you do that every day? I love that jacket. Is that leather? I glance down at my clothes, at the jacket she's talking about. From where we stand, I can see the snow falling, still, in big clumps outside through the windows. It is the morning we all lose our jobs, 3 days before Christmas. I manage to laugh. Yeah, I say, awkwardly. I'm coming from a hookup. I keep a clean outfit here, just in case. Lee? makes an excited little noise, waving me over. "Why didn't you tell me in the elevator? This is news worth talking about, Jesus!" I turn my head to the end of the bank of offices around which is Gil's office. I am in there with him, being an asshole and losing my job. My head hurts. I want a way out of this dream, and I can't seem to create it. I close my eyes. I've barely heard what Lee is telling me about her fiancé when it occurs. I see her clearly after I leave Gil's office. She will ask me something about my clothes, then about the almond butter machine. I will ignore her, take my stapler out of my desk, and leave without telling her what's coming. I am only a few minutes from leaving Gil's office and coming back down this hallway. That is, if I'm lucky. "Hey," I tell Lee, rounding the end of the desks to her. "I'm sorry. I've got to... They're going to..." I'm thinking, not fast enough, when I realize that the answer is in front of me. That the answer has already happened. "I heard they're getting rid of the almond butter machine on the 3rd floor," I say to her. "I'll be back. Do you want some?" Lee doesn't let it show on her face how strange she finds me, because she smiles and nods and tells me no. I'm running out of time. I cross the hall, continue down toward the elevators, then double back to the other end of the floor. 5 minutes pass. Then Gil's door opens. I watch me leave, leaving the door swinging in a wide arc. Stomping down the carpet. I wait for me to turn the corner, come back to the floor where Lee sits. I watch Gil lean out of his office, watching me go, see the back of his head, and want more than anything for him to turn around so that I can see him. But the walls are already dissolving back into static. I back away, trying to keep it all in my head, but it's dissipating faster than I can will it back. I close my eyes. The hammer hits the back of my neck. "Fuck!" I've screamed it, seizing every muscle in my body, throwing my head back up off my desktop with force enough to knock myself over. The chair, massively heavy, managed to stay put while I windmilled my arms, leveling myself, soaked in sweat. Above me, I saw a glimpse of my clock, 9 a.m. The second hand ticked ahead, reaching the 1. I saw across the atrium that Lev's office was empty and dark. I breathed, yanking breaths into my lungs as fast as I could. My body felt heavy, unwieldy, as though I'd spent hours underwater and was just now surfacing. I looked down at my hands, the bowl of cereal knocked over on my desk, leaking milk into the seams on my steel and bolt desk, puddling onto the floor. I gasped for air. As if by clockwork, my door opened. 2 guys I'd never seen before marched inside, carrying a black box that one clipped open on my desk, while the other cleaned up my spilled milk and bagged my bowl and spoon. Neither paid me any attention. The one with the black box had introduced a handful of wires hooked to a monitor. The one who had cleaned up my desk pushed me backward into the chair and started unbuttoning my shirt. I lay there, shaking. One of them snapped his fingers in front of my face in a diamond pattern, and instinctively I followed his hand. The wires were stuck to my ribs, one just under my belly button, 2 more on each side of my neck. "Breathe," I was told. I had just registered the words when they looked at each other. "I'd like whatever they use to knock him out in an IV for parties," one said. "I don't think you want this shit, brother. Looks like 1 out of 3's a bad trip, at least. You'd think you'd remember by now. Breathe, guy. In, out." I stared between them, then did as I was told. They went about their duties, talking intermittently to each other. After about 5 minutes, one stripped the sticky patches from my chest and they packed their gear. The other buttoned my shirt back up and left me sitting at my now clean desk, going the way they'd come. The door shut behind them. I sat, shaking, clenching my hands together, too afraid to look around me. The world was solid again. I reached around my head, feeling around my skull, rubbing my eyes. My door opened again. I looked up, saw Lev take a seat at the other end of my desk on one of the chairs set up, facing me. He was looking at his phone. "Remind me again what you've got today?" he said vacantly. I sat, staring at him. He glanced up at me. "Big boy," he said, a little louder. "You with us? Big week, you know. Io's visit and all." What just happened? I took little, uneasy breaths, inching myself back. "We're going to do this every time, aren't we?" Lev said, standing up, coming around the desk to me. He cupped my face in his hands. "I was hoping you'd settle down by now. It's been months." I jerked away, standing. "What the fuck are you doing to me?" "Don't struggle." Lev rolled his eyes, sitting back down. "It's embarrassing. In an hour you'll be back down and won't remember a thing. Can we just get there? Do we have to trek through all this nonsense beforehand? You know, I would have hoped you'd develop a better tolerance. Irritability, disorientation. Why do I bother?" He returned to his phone and started typing something long, ignoring me. I sat, looking around the office, the concourse below. I counted dots, people continuing on with their work, oblivious. "Apartment good?" Lev asked me, bored. "Getting everything you need?" I could have broken his head over the edge of this desk, but I knew something more, something he didn't, at least I hoped. It was the same day for him, but a different day for me. I took in my breaths, coming back to zero. This was going to require skill. "I am," I said. Lev smacked his lips in response. "It's a great place." "Course it is," Lev said. "You keep it a pigsty, by the way. You're okay if I step away a bit early today? I got a spin class." "Do whatever you want." "I knew you'd say that." Lev smiled. "You always do. I like this jacket on you, by the way. I hoped you'd like it." He stood. "You know, Io really did love you that day. It's hard to tell with her, but I know she did. I've asked her to pretend, of course, what with everybody watching, but I could tell. It would kill you to know how much of the crap that flies out of her mouth is crap she genuinely believes in. The parable of the friend at night. Jesus Christ. Just nail me to some wood now. Save me the torture of listening to that drivel for another goddamn second." He chuckled at his own joke. "You got a bit heated this morning, big boy," he said. "I haven't seen activity like yours in a while. Probably not since you first. Anything good this time?" Lev made snoring noises, tilting his head back in his chair. "Do you know how grating that gets 4 months later? It's every day, my guy. It doesn't seem healthy for you. I don't know anybody who fixates that deeply on their mothers, and yours isn't even alive anymore." I sat quietly. What do I normally tell you about my mother? Lev checked his watch. "There was a time, early on, when we thought the dreams were going to point us somewhere fruitful. Maybe somewhere we were getting at for amplified activity. Maybe if you localized to the memory center, left or right half, somewhere in there. But we've tried everything in the book, big boy. Honestly, there's nothing there. You're just a little boy, aren't you? Still hurting, still torn up. It comprises everything you do and say. That, and that fucking show. Jesus, how many times do I need to hear about this show? I watched it, by the way. A couple of months ago, I rented the whole thing. Couldn't make it through more than a few hours. You're a dark little soul. Death and drugs and motel fucks. Not to mention, it's the most racist fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. The nonsense people get canceled over these days. Does nobody remember the kind of shit you could get away with in 1985? It doesn't suit you. I shouldn't complain. It's the focus that makes you ideal. Consistency. We wouldn't have come this far without you." He slapped his palms down on his thighs. "You might have just proven me wrong," he said. "You're usually off the walls by now. Could it be tolerance? I won't jinx it." He stood. "You're the most fun I have all day. I think that makes you my best friend. Sad for both of us, isn't it?" I listened, glimpsing over his shoulder at the... Okay, let's try this again. I listened, glimpsing over his shoulder at the... My brain is translating that into glancing. Mouth says it right every time. My brain does not. My brain says, it's something completely different, boy, oh boy. Big boy.
Anyway, I listened, glimpsing over his shoulder the pantry and the refrigerator. He was about to leave, and it would be my only chance. Lev, I said, who's Jem? I don't know any Gems, big boy, Lev said. Friend, you know? Something like that. He gave me some advice a while ago. Good for you, Lev said. I hear you don't have any other friends. I hear you don't have any other friends. Lev. He had risen from his seat and stopped across my desk, peering intently at me. We waited, looking at each other, wondering who would be the first to make their move. Then it happened. A great groan of the ironwork around us, a whistle tone through the walls as every light blew out, the comforting hush of the air conditioning ground to a halt, silent and dark. Lev glanced out my window at the rest of F1 gone entirely dark, the streets, the buildings, the city over the water. It had all gone dark. He narrowed his eyes. Absolutely fascinating. He straightened up. We make something to fix that. We make something to fix that, I said, catching his attention. Don't we, Lev? He turned his head, noticing me, giving me a look, one that had the feel of a look he didn't usually give, an indicator of something changed. His lip curled, not a smile. He swept out of the room, closing the door behind me. I sat still, my mind racing. I stood, paced the office a few times. The elevators were out. After a few minutes, I saw him jog out of the stairwell 10 floors down, leave through the doors, come out to a waiting car, and climb inside. I waited for the car to leave through the ramp, enter the traffic on the far side of the campus, watching it all through the windows. When it was gone, I bolted. I had only my jacket and didn't remember if I'd brought anything else, but didn't care. I followed Lev's path down the stairwell, where a crowd was already evacuating, and let myself out on the ground floor near the trees. I crossed the empty space framed with fake landscaping to the other side of the campus. I slowed, coming to a jog in front of a group I recognized. Rye, 2 others, seated at one of the tables. There appeared to be a stark divide between those acknowledging another blackout had wiped what was likely the entire city and counties beyond for the foreseeable future, and those who still had their lunch to finish. Rye. She saw me, her face falling. I reached them. Her 2 friends fell silent. Do you know who I am? Yeah, Rye said, trying to laugh. Can we help you? What day is it? Tuesday. When's the last time I talked to you? Rye frowned. The joke was no longer funny. What's up with you? Tell me, I said forcefully. When was the last time I talked to you? She shook her head, smiling, giving fleeting looks to her 2 friends. A couple weeks? What's... I looked around the area, then back up to the 10th floor. Listen to me, I said. I need you to come to my office at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Please, just do it. I'm up on the 10th floor. Do you know, Rye said, that you look like you've put a spray can of paint up your nose? We just blacked out, do you realise? My night's ruined. Last time I didn't get my Wi-Fi back for 4 days. Jesus, just listen to me, I said, breathing fast. Something keeps happening. I get to my office at 9 a.m. every morning, and something happens. It's like I get shot in the head, and then everything goes white, and I can see parts of my past that have already happened, and I don't know what to do, and Lev knows what's going on, and... Rye stood, slightly pale, raised her hand. Rye, please, listen to me. Please just listen to me. I'm going to go, she said. Something in her face had changed in a way that had closed itself off to me. There would be no more convincing. Please, do not talk to me any more. Rye, maybe you don't get something here, she said more forcefully. We don't know each other. We have never known each other. And if you keep talking to me, I'm going to HR. Her friends stood, gathering their lunches. The 3 of them turned, leaving me at the table.
F1 was slowly emptying itself as most packed their offices and prepared for the trip home. I watched them go, their heads close together. One took a last look at me before they sped away. I was breathing hard, soaked in sweat. I turned on the spot, revolving, looking up at the glass walls, the walkways high above me. Fuck. The word had escaped like a short breath of air. I wasn't thinking anymore, just turning my head, looking for a place to go. I saw the bank of bathrooms tucked behind the food and started walking. The hollow sounds of the great atrium sunk away. I found the door. I pushed it open, expecting pitch black, but saw the sky first. The ceiling was punctuated with bright round skylights every few feet, throwing solitary beams of light onto the floor at regular intervals. I saw her reflection in the mirror second, then the back of her head. Leaned down to wash her hands in the sink. A row of stalls and urinals extended far behind us. Io Emsworth straightened her back, drying her hands with a paper towel she pulled off the dispenser. "Quiet out here," she said, "isn't it?" I glanced around, looking for the bodyguards. She was alone. "What are you doing here?" Io Emsworth snorted, a confused sort of amusement on her face. "This is my bathroom. Every single toilet in here is mine. What are you doing in here?" I stopped myself. "I don't know. Looking for a quiet place, I guess." She seemed satisfied with that, coming closer. "I wonder how long this one's going to last," she said. "It's been 10 minutes already. Not a good sign." I stared at her, with nothing to say. She didn't seem unnerved by the fact that we were in here alone. "You look uncomfortable," Io Emsworth said. "It's been a long day. Are you enjoying yourself?" She gestured around the bathroom. "You know, our average retention used to be around 3 months. People didn't quite seem to get what we were doing. When you work somewhere shiny like this, everybody notices. It's easy to get a job out of here." "Do I work here?" "What a stupid fucking question," Io Emsworth said. "I don't think it is." I said, "I don't think you mean anything you say." "That's a problem of cognition that I can't help you with," Io Emsworth said, stepping toward the door. "Are they even real?" She glanced back at me, raising an eyebrow. "Is any of this real?" I asked her. "Are you even doing what you tell the press you're doing?" "This company is so much bigger than you," Io Emsworth said quietly. Evidently, something in her had trained itself on me, annoyed, and was choosing its words more carefully than she normally would. "Bigger than your questions, bigger than mine. We have so much work to do." "Have you even made a single fucking battery yet, Io?" The expression on her face had barely changed. I supposed she was used to this. She was recorded almost every minute of her life. She'd learned not to react. I would never get used to the way famous people lived their lives, simultaneously the most open and the most distrustful people alive. There was no telling what kind of things a person like that was capable of. Io Emsworth was quiet for the longest time. In the back of my mind, I wondered if she'd ever been talked to this way, certainly not in this building, certainly not in the past 5 years. "Let me ask you something. What if we haven't?" she said finally. "What would you do then? Would you act any differently?" "I would stop lying to myself." "No, I don't think you would," she said. "I don't think you can accurately estimate the level of comfort you operate at. Nobody can. I think you get so comfortable that deep down you will accept any truth they tell you that lets you keep existing the way you're accustomed to, whether you make a single fucking battery or not, whether you even know it." I tried to speak, thinking of nothing. She took another step closer, bringing her face just a few inches away from mine. "Before you do something stupid, let me tell you now," she said quietly. "He's listening." The door behind us opened with a bang, and 2 guys in suits shouldered their way into the bathroom.
"What are you doing?"
one asked, not even a question. "I'm taking a shit," Io Emsworth said, frowning. "You could have found me if you really looked." The other three reached for her arm and jerked her away from me. "Copter's here." "It's about time," Io Emsworth said, and I noticed that she hadn't yet taken her eyes off me. The bodyguard's grip on her arm remained tight. The door was opened. The three of them left without another word, leaving me there. I didn't have anywhere else to go. Once I'd started breathing normal again, I walked back out into the atrium. Io Emsworth was gone. Down the escalators, which had stopped working, the blonde kid was deep in conversation with a row of security guards overseeing the evacuation. They waved me through. The city loomed over the water. I would have bet this could have been a sight to see if it were nighttime, the city laid out in front of me across the water like this. You'd think it was any old establishing shot from any number of the episodes that began like this. Cold winter night, cars crawling, people just trying to get home. But with the sun out, you could barely tell anything was wrong. My car was waiting, its doors opening for me.
"Crazy," he commented. "Wonder how long this one's going to be."
I sat in his back seat, numb, unable even to follow the view of our journey back over the bridge. Back to the glass front of my building. I shouldered the door open, reaching the lobby, and realized then, far too late, that I'd left my belt bag hanging on my desk chair back at F1. I came to the desk, where the girl with the long earrings was sitting. The dark lobby was eerily quiet, tomb-like around us. "I left my things at work," I said. "I don't have my key card." "Not a problem, sir," she said, smiling. She opened a drawer behind her and rummaged around a mess of old metal keys with both hands. "Until the power's back, the locks have switched to manual. I'll send your driver back to your office to get your bag." "It's all right," I told her. "I'll find them tomorrow." "So you'll go back tomorrow," she said. I looked at her, a face that didn't seem to move any of its muscles above the mouth when speaking or listening. I looked at her, at a face that didn't seem to move any of its muscles above the mouth when speaking or listening. "What do you mean?" "Because," she trailed off, "you have to go back. That's what you signed up for, isn't it? You've got a lot of people to answer for, a lot of people watching what you'll do next." I didn't answer, staring at her. She smiled. "Before I forget," she said, "Lev left a message for you. He asked that you think before you ask any more questions." She passed me my key. "Anything else I can do for you?" I shook my head, because there really was nothing more. Made my way up to the elevator bank and punched my number before realizing it would not come. I found my way around the side of the lobby to the stairs and climbed 20 flights. On my floor, I stepped into the hallway, passing the windows, high, vaulted glass that looked out over the city, at the sun rising high over us, all of us. I wanted sleep. I wanted nothing. I wanted to wake up in Gil's arms again. I wanted my old job. I wanted my mother. Does it occur to you that I did everything I could? I hope it does, because it's not true. It only means I tell a good story. One in which it makes sense, what I do next, when I turn the corner to face my front door and see, sitting in front of it with his legs crossed, hugging a ratty backpack to his chest, my brother, Kaz. And on that potentially melodramatic note, potentially nothing, it is melodramatic, and I don't think that's a spoiler. I think we have to call it for today.
Or, and get this, or it's 2:08. And I could just read another chapter or two. Is it really 2 chapters? Well, they're short. Shortish. One of them's super short, one of them's a bit long. You know what? I love you all so much. You're getting extra out of the day.
And that way we can finish this tomorrow.
Booyah!
Give me a sec to
liquid up.
$11. Here's the thing about Maxie Lang. There really is nothing, literally, to prove he wasn't just some shitty, spoiled kid, and that's why he never worked again after the show got canceled. There's nothing. There are no interviews, no citations. This was an age before social media, yes, but the fact that the kid basically disappeared off the face of the earth and only reappeared 11 or 12 years later when they found him dead doesn't give anybody much to work with. And as a result, Tran Duc Kien doesn't get talked about enough. The fact that he was born in San Jose to Vietnamese refugees, the fact that he attended an open call for Asian child actors between the ages of 8 and 10, older okay but scrawny, said the description. It was known that the character was a clear ripoff of Short Round, the most famous Asian kid in the world after Temple of Doom came out the year before. It was also known that Moto was written male or female, and therefore could be tweaked to fit two possible thematic undercurrents: a boy who would underpin Raider's development as a model for masculinity, or a girl who would humanize and reframe his chauvinistic attitudes towards women, perhaps even catalyze a change in his sense of chivalry. Either way, the cast edition made you a father. Tran booked the part. A savvy producer gave him the far more billable name Maxie Lang, and it stuck. Season 2 filmed for 5 months and wrapped. Raider was cancelled by the network halfway through airing the season. Antonin Haubert made a young, hot Houdini biopic and received his first Oscar nomination at 27 the next year. You know the rest. I wondered a lot about Maxie Lang, whether he ever watched the show, if he was proud of it. I've seen the clip they played at the Emmys the year he died along with the rest of the dead folks, a scene from Season 2, Episode 17, Checkmate, in which Moto rubs his hands together over a steaming bowl of noodles. Massively stereotypical, sure, but there was something true there. Moto, an orphan, a gang child whose parents left him for dead, someone to whom the worst possible things have already happened, but still a kid. Dad and I liked him the best for that reason. There was humor in the way the writers treated him. He could cut deep with his words, usually just a few syllables in accented English, despite the fact that Maxie didn't even have an accent himself. There wasn't enough attention I could pay to the idea that a Vietnamese kid was, with more of a Bay Area twang than anything, was ching-chonging his way through the role of a Chinese street urchin. It wasn't important, which was to say it was, massively, but not to me. Moto had a habit of appearing around the scene like a ghost, the camera catching only the top of his head and swinging down in a dramatic pan to his face afterward. Those shots made us laugh, the both of us. I wasn't sure I looked like him anymore. There had always been some who could guess what I was, but quite a few in my recent memory could barely tell I was Asian. And what was it about those genes that made it so easy for me to grow out of them? Like shedding a husk, less and less a part of me. That's another cool thing about this book, is it's kind of a treatise on, I guess, kind of whiteness. And the role of the Asian in Asian American. There's a lot of layers here. It is quite the onion. Kaz didn't look like that. Kaz still had our mother's eyes. His hair was darker, and his skin tanned more easily. He'd been out in the sun a while, recently. The back of his neck was brown, and his eyes had sunk a bit deeper into his skull. Grown. He stood, keeping his arms around his backpack, while I reached him in the front of my door. He smelled like garbage. I couldn't imagine how he'd even gotten into the lobby, given the state of his shoes. "Hey," he said, both softly and sadly. "Nice jacket. Edgy." He stepped aside, and I let us inside with the key. We took off our shoes. He left his on top of each other by the door and wandered around my kitchen and living room in his socks. I flicked the switches in the hall for a moment before realizing the obvious. I might have been more worried if I'd had anything perishable in the fridge, or anything, really. "This really where you live?" Sunlight poured through onto us, blasting the filth on his clothes into clearer definition. It was just barely noon. The building had gone quiet without central air. "It's new." "Must be." He set his backpack on my couch and took several seconds to canvass the view from the windows, shimmying to each end of the glass. "What are you doing here?" I asked him. Kaz feigned some kind of hurt, hearing me. "What am I doing here?" "How do you know my address?" "Are you impressed?" he asked. "You like your new job?" "It's a job, and it pays well." "Pays really well, apparently." "Kaz, what are you doing here?" I was wondering, all this time, what it was going to take for me to forget what I'd just seen in my own office. Most peculiarly obvious were the tender points on my chest where the techs had ripped my electrodes off. My head pounded. Kaz wasn't supposed to be here. I wasn't in the mood for him, and never would be. "You never called me back," he said. "What else was I supposed to do?" "A lot of things," I said, short of showing up at my door. "You say that like I'm not welcome." "You aren't," I said, crossing the room, swiping his bag off my couch, leaving gray streaks on the suede. I don't even know what kind of day I've had. I don't know what the fuck's going on in my life. You should have called." Kaz put his hands up, showing me his palms, saying nothing. I dug my knuckles into the sides of my head. Right. He had, in fact, called. "How did you even get up here?" "Looks like the East Coast is a little preoccupied with more pressing matters, doesn't it?" Kaz jerked his head out the window. "I'd love to see this view at night, all the dark buildings. Might actually see the stars for once, if we're black for that long, God willing." I gestured to the couch. He gestured to the couch. "Can I sit?" "You look like you've been sleeping on the street." "I don't have anybody to crash with here. This city is expensive. Plus 5 hours on a train from Illinois. You could be nicer to me." "Tell me what you want and leave." My brother laughed, only half serious. "Why was I expecting you to change? You look different, definitely, but you're still tired of me. I'm here for Dad. Remember him?" He pushed past me, bumping our shoulders, and poured himself a glass of water in my kitchen. "I want to talk to you about moving into long-term care. I found some really good places in-state. Medicaid can pay for some, but I need help selling his house." He looked at me funny. "Are you going to help me, Bo?" "Don't call me that," I said. "What are you talking about long-term care for? He's fine." "According to you?" Kaz said. "When's the last time you talked to him?" "Christmas. He called me." "Yeah, I know he did. He told me you hung up on him." "I didn't." "Anyway," Kaz cut me off, "maybe you can believe me instead of yourself when I tell you that he needs it. He's calling every morning and he doesn't remember what day it is. I've been back home 10 times in the past month because he's left the house at night. Police stations, fire stations, hospitals. He needs to be somewhere safe. I can't keep thinking about him like this anymore." He finished his drink and rinsed the glass in my sink. He looked at me expectantly. "What?" I said. "I'm asking you for help. Do you know what help is, Bo? It's when you think about someone else when something bad happens. I need to tell Dad. I need to convince him it's going to be the best for him. I need to file fucking mountains of paperwork and email his case rep, and I don't even have an address right now." He paused, about to say more and rethinking it. And what was I thinking about? Maybe that I'd drunk the wrong milk in my office and fucking blasted myself through time, through space, all the while realizing that I've been the pawn to some twisted, psychopathic science experiment for months, and, for all I knew, was floating in a tube of goo somewhere dreaming all of this up in my sleep. That I was being watched, that Lev was probably looking at the two of us right now through a camera he'd installed in my toilet, under my bed, behind my own fucking eyes. How do you talk to somebody like this, Raider? How do you think? "Look." Kaz had softened his voice. His face. Was that pity? He was idling his hands together in front of him, fretting. "I know it's been a while. I know you don't want to talk to me. You don't have to talk to me. But I'm worried about him. I'd like for him to get some better meds and see some better doctors. They say once they start realizing they're losing it, they get angry and they get violent. I don't want to get there and have nobody backing us up. He'd said something like, "My son's calling," the night he'd called me. I'd imagined at the time he was with a friend. He had friends, I thought. I saw him sitting alone in that house, speaking to no one, dialing the phone and thinking he wasn't. If it was in fact the springtime already, I hadn't talked to him in months. I had closed my eyes. In the Season 2 finale, there was a moment like this, the split second, after you are cornered in the warehouse by thugs with guns and sat forcibly in your chair in the center of the room. You hear those footsteps the first time. Loud and sharp, the sound of expensive leather on concrete. The moment in which a man, that all signs, both literal and thematic, point to as the baddie, the one you've been waiting for, the first time you've ever really seen his face, the one pulling the strings behind you all this time, enters in silhouette and slowly reveals his face. A moment in which the demon head's piercing eyes light up the screen and we are all left wondering, to ourselves, what in the fuck is about to happen and whether we can take it. It happened quickly. We heard a sharp whistle, groans as the air came to life inside the walls and started again to cycle. The hall lights flickered to life behind us. Beyond, the sound of 100 more whistles and groans, cogs underground that began again to turn, water that began again to boil. "Give me a reason, Bo." I looked straight at him, freezing to the spot. The room had gone quiet around us, the sun hiding itself behind clouds. "What did you say to me?" Kaz frowned. Oh, shit, it was Kaz that said it. Fuck.
Damn it! Damn it!
"Give me a reason, Bo." I looked straight at him, freezing to the spot. The room had gone quiet around us, the sun hiding itself behind clouds. "What did you say to me?" Kaz frowned. He gave a quick glance to his left. I closed the distance between us, a foot away. "What did you say to me just now?" I asked him. "What's up with you? Tell me what you just said." I was almost shouting. I shook from deep inside, trying to keep my focus on him. My brother's face had gone pale. "I was just telling you, people in Dad's condition could start getting violent if they're confused enough. I was saying..." "That's not what you said. You said something else after that." "No, I didn't." "Did he send you here?" I realized I was panting. I pulled at the top of my head, raking my fingers across my scalp. "Tell me the truth." "Dad? Did Dad send me here?" "Lev, you motherfucker! I'm talking about Lev! I'm asking you if Lev sent you here to fuck me up!" Kaz had backed away, slightly, though his face remained calm. "I don't know what you're talking about, Bo." "Stop calling me that!" I spat. I think I wanted fear. I wanted to scare something out of him and was doing my best. "Nobody calls me that!" "I did," Kaz said gravely. "Dad did." "Fuck you," I said. "What, is this some kind of test? Are you out there watching me?" I spun around, trying to find something in the corners of the walls, the seams in the paint. "I know you're watching!" I shouted. "I know you can see me and you're sick! You're fucking sick!" I felt hands on my shoulders and almost fell, stumbling back against the section of my couch that caught the back of my knees. Kaz had put on a... I'm sorry, I'm just stumbling over the fact that somebody probably just heard me in the apartment and is wondering if I finally lost my fucking mind. Much like Bo/Brandon has. Completely out of his depth, having something of a nervous breakdown for pretty understandable reasons. I felt hands on my shoulders and almost fell, stumbling back against the section of my couch that caught the back of my knees. Kaz had put out his hands to steady me. He was looking at me funny again, the way he'd done before. "What's happening to you?" I tried to answer. I really did. I could feel the words ticking away inside, could imagine the way they might tumble from me, the way he'd understand them and stop looking at me funny. I saw a way out in his face. It was clear and plain. I caught my breath. Kaz waited for me, as though waiting for the punchline, the joke I'd been withholding, cruelly, from him. I straightened up. "Just get out of here." Kaz didn't move, continuing now to look at me in a way that I hated. It was like he was lording it over me, his goodness, his loyalty, everything Dad liked about him that I didn't have. And who would it be that he called the next time? Certainly not me. Some days I forgot I even had him. On the best days, I could get myself to erase it all. I could pass hours and hours without a father, without a brother, and it would be the sweetest feeling in the world. Kaz took his bag off the ground and looped it over one shoulder. "You don't—" He broke off. "You don't even call him anymore." "Fuck you." "Who did this to Bo?" "Shit. Who did this to you, Bo?" Kaz asked me. "Who made you such a fucking cunt?" "I'm sure you'd all love that," I told him. "You're always winning, aren't you? You're the one Dad loves. You're the one Mom loved. You are this shining light, and I can't help spewing shit all over your perfect family." "Nobody's saying that." "That's what you want me to say, right?" I couldn't stop myself. "You want me to say it was my fault?" "Well, it was. I know it was. I know you can't stand it. I know Dad... I let it all fall to the ground. There was nothing left. Nothing more I could do. Kaz put his hand out toward me, raising a finger. His eyes were wide. When he spoke, his voice was a whisper. "She loved you," he said. "Oma loved you." He seemed about to say more. There were times, when I looked at him, at old pictures, in my memories, in my dreams, when I could see all that it was I wanted to be. Everything he had. No job, dirtbag friends, points and parole, but he was, in fact, free. He was, in fact, good. And there, waiting for him to say more, I caught myself wanting so badly to be told what a piece of shit I was. It would be concrete, fact, and therefore somehow better. But it didn't come. I wanted it, but he didn't give it to me. Just turned, picked up his shoes, and was gone within the span of less than 10 seconds. I found myself straining, listening for footsteps outside, on the carpet, and heard none. I stood there, breathing deeply, sweat dripping from my forehead. Your jacket was hot and sticking to the back of my neck, but I didn't take it off. My phone rang. I glanced at it, reading "Dad" written on the screen. I answered it. "Dad." "Oh, honey, I can't seem to find the catalogues." I felt emptied, hearing him, pressing the screen harder to my face. "Dad, I want to—" "Because I had them here a minute ago, I swear," he said, his voice crackling through soddy reception. It sounded so gruff, he'd gotten so old. "If you came here and figured this out, it might help me with find the catalogues." I took in a deep breath. "What are you talking about? What catalogues?" "Well, if I had the catalogues, I could figure out—" He trailed off. "No, that wouldn't be right. I couldn't ever. I couldn't figure—" Dad. I could feel it coming without any means to stop it. I gritted my teeth. "Dad, just tell me what you want." "Can you come here?" "Come where? Home? I'm 100 miles away." "Because I just need to find out how to get those—" "Appa, just tell me what you fucking want! Tell me what you want!" I was crying. My voice had gone out and reduced itself to a hoarse whisper by the time I'd stopped myself. He was breathing on the other line. I could hear his breaths soft and gentle through my phone. I sank onto my couch. I was heaving harder than I had in recent memory, just lying out there, letting it all go. You'd be ashamed of me, Raider. I know you would. Thinking that if anybody deserved to be beat up like this, it was me and not him. We were not so alike, after all. "I'm sorry," I managed to get out. I'm I'm so sorry, Appa.
Bo? What's going on? Are you...
I hung up, heard the end of his word cut just as my finger hit the button, and dropped my phone to the floor. I didn't speak anymore, just tipped sideways and buried my head under a cushion, waiting for sleep. I woke. Sun streamed in through the windows I'd left open. My phone was halfway under my pillow. I dug it out, sitting up, finding myself back in bed. I remembered only vaguely having slept for most of the day, getting up to pee, to drink water. There were alerts all across my screen. The blackout had lasted a total of 43 minutes in the city, longer in the suburbs for 50 miles in every direction. I stopped reading. I was wearing all of my clothes, and my jacket had dug a red line into my cheek where the lapel collar had ridden up under my face. I stood and made it to the bathroom, wetting my hair. I didn't feel rested. My muscles were leaden and sore, as though I'd been clenching them, keeping my whole body rigid for hours. I checked my phone, no messages or calls. It was nearly 8. I stumbled to the windows and looked straight down to the street, spotting my car pulled in beside the curb below. I shut myself into my office 5 minutes to 9 and dug around the pantry for my cereal. Out of the window, I saw Lev's office was empty, across the open expanse. I paced my office, trying to shake myself further awake. I was hungry. I paused in front of the fridge, bowl in hand. I reached out, took the 1%, and sat in front of my desk with 2 minutes to go. I ate quickly, as I usually did, and drained the bowl. 1 minute. I sat, hands folded in front of me, watching the clock, its minute hand coming to rest at 12. I am standing on a snowy street, whipped by wind. Flakes fall slowly, appearing out of the air like ghosts escaping the static. I turn my head toward the light, a street lamp on the far end of the pavement. I start walking. The snow was falling heavier around him, collecting on his jacket, around his shoes. His hand stung, extending up from his wrist at an angle he didn't want to look at. Bo sat up, holding his arm close to his chest, and tried to stop crying. When he looked down, he saw his blood marked on the asphalt, stained in a print of his palm on the ground. Bo had stopped moving, sat up because he had seen him coming, a pinprick on the surface of the road where he lay, cheek to the ground. The figure was taking slow, careful steps toward him. In the distance, car horns sounded, traffic miles away that carried through the air and in the streets. It was a man, Bo could see now, tall and slim, and wearing a black leather jacket. He squinted, trying to see clearer. Yes, he knew the jacket. It was perhaps the one thing he might be able to spot from a mile away, no matter how old he got. It was Jacket Guy's jacket. It had to be. The missing loop, the shiny silver buttons, the way it hung loose and boxy on the man's shoulders. It was all there. He shivered, inching farther away. But Jacket Guy kept coming, closing the distance until there were not 10, 9, 8 feet between them. He couldn't quite see his face, though the hair was similar, the shape of the body similar. When he spoke, it was as though the sound reached into the back corners of Bo's mind, unearthing what he knew. "Hey, Bo." Bo wiped his eyes, keeping his throbbing wrist locked close to his chest. He didn't move, out of fear of hurting again. The stab he'd felt was worse than anything he'd ever felt in his life. The man stopped just short of him, regarding him on the ground with his hands in his pockets. "How do you know my name?" Bo asked. Jacket Guy didn't quite know how to answer this question, as though coming across it for the first time himself. He tilted his head slowly. "I know a lot about you," he said, "including why you're out here all alone in the street." "I got lost," Bo said. Jacket Guy crouched low so that their heads came level. Still dark, Bo could not make out the details, but the voice was there. He spent a second wondering if he were dreaming, coming across no good answers.
I think your wrist is broken,
Jacket Guy said. Bo got to his knees. His nose dripped steadily, and he raised a sleeve to rub his face dry. He stood, head down, overwhelmed.
I don't know,
he whispered. His eyes ran. He wiped them, and they kept running. He didn't know where it came from, the way it took him over, swallowing his insides while the heaving breaths he took seemed the only thing that offered relief. He cried and couldn't help it, missing his father and his brother, but mostly his mother. He wished for a way that he could tell Jacket Guy and not sound so pathetic. Although, if truth were to be told, there was a part of him that knew Jacket Guy could already tell. That Jacket Guy would understand, having grown up without a mother himself, having grown up without friends or family or really anybody, not even regular people, strangers even, to fill the emptiness of his life. He felt Jacket Guy reach out, tip his chin back up so they could look at each other face to face.
You know, Bo, Jacket Guy said, I bet you've really freaked your dad out tonight. I bet he's looking all over for you. I bet he's really scared that he lost you.
Bo nodded. The streaming tears had stopped somewhat, more out of embarrassment, but stopped nonetheless, which he was thankful for. Jacket Guy straightened up. Together they looked down the street, now small and dim, just a street now that Bo could see clearly. There's multiple ways you could read that. Just a street now that Bo could see clearly. Just a street now that Bo could see clearly. I'm not quite sure. Anyway,
come on,
Jacket Guy said, putting out his hand.
I'll walk you home.
Bo hesitated, glancing around at the dark houses. On the far end, a small yard in front of the last one on the block was lit with weakly glowing lights throwing jagged shapes onto the street. Jacket Guy took back his hand. He nodded, understanding, and crouched. Bo put his arm gingerly around Jacket Guy's neck and was lifted into the air. He watched the houses pass as Jacket Guy continued down the block. They were silent for several minutes, listening only to the wind and the faraway traffic. Jacket Guy walked slowly, trying to keep his movements smooth so as not to disturb Bo's wrist.
Hey, Bo?
Yeah?
Jacket Guy took a minute to figure out how to say it. Bo could tell. The side of his neck smelled like mint, prickly with stubble. Bo inched himself deeper into Jacket Guy's arms, trying to get warm. They had reached a crossing that he recognized. They were less than 10 minutes from the house. Gradually, the trees and sidewalks he knew began to take shape around them.
What do you remember about your mom?
Bo thought about this for a long time. There were, of course, many things he remembered, so recent as not even to be memories yet, he thought. She was wearing a white sweater that morning he had left for the bus with Kaz. Her hair had been tied up, and her socks had been 2 different colors as she hadn't finished with the laundry downstairs. Bo himself had been wearing a pair of underpants he hadn't worn since the 1st grade, and had been stuffed into the corner of his drawer. She had told him the usual, to have a good day, to look after his brother, to hold his hand when they got onto the bus, and Bo had told her yes, and yes he would, and still Kaz had tripped and almost broken his teeth on the first stair onto the bus. His mother had watched from the door, hugging her arms to her chest in the wind, and waved as they pulled away down the street. It had been the last time he saw her face. Hal had not allowed them inside her room in the hospital.
Lots, Bo said finally. I don't know.
Jacket Guy was quiet, edging around a patch of the sidewalk covered in ice. He spoke again.
You remember her breakfast she made you?
Pajon, Bo said. No shrimp. I don't like shrimp.
Jacket Guy stopped, looking at him with a curious expression on his face.
Who says you don't like shrimp?
Me, Bo said, shrugging. It smells weird.
No, it doesn't.
Does too.
Jacket Guy frowned, then continued walking. They had come to the end of the block, rounding the circle on which the house stood, the trees still lit, the living room a warm yellow glow leaching out onto the snow in front of it. They lingered, looking up at the house. Jacket Guy was making a strange face, gazing up at it. Bo followed the line of his eyes to the tree, visible through the sheer curtains. I like our tree this year, Bo said. Snowflakes caught his hair as they fell to the earth, Snowflakes caught in his hair as they fell to earth had begun to melt and send a little drip of icy cold down past his ears, raising the hairs on his head. Jacket Guy nodded, shakily. He appeared afraid, looking up at the house. Your mom must have liked this one, he said. She did, Bo said. They spent another minute in front of it, safe in their quiet little space, away from whatever had happened and whatever would come next, just for a minute, a moment of time that would no longer be. Then Jacket Guy climbed the snowbank, crossed the lawn, and knocked his shoes on the porch before reaching out and ringing the doorbell. They heard footsteps, the deadbolt turning. Bo saw his father's face, flushed red, his eyes wide and bright. He held the phone, evidently still on the line with somebody, in one hand. They looked at each other. Hal forced his lips shut. Bo. His eyes fell on Bo's bloody wrist. Bo moved slightly, putting his head down to look at the floor. Sorry, Appa. Hal's eyes were streaming. He nodded, once, then twice. Jacket Guy set Bo down on the porch. Bo approached, carefully, cradling his arm. He had been about to speak when the breath was knocked from his lungs. Hal had thrown his arms tight around his body and was squeezing him hard. His whole body heaved. Bo felt his head pressed deep into his father's chest, smelling detergent, wool that tickled his nose. Hal sobbed, hugging him tighter, making sounds Bo had never heard him make before. He wanted to cry, if not for his own pain, for his father's, knowing now, more than ever, that the hurt between them was one of the few things left that bound them. Bo, Hal whispered. Bo! It was a while before he was let go. Hal stared, holding his shoulders, moving his lips and making no sound. He stammered, coming to his senses. We need to get you to the hospital. We have to go now. He stood and noticed, perhaps for the first time, Jacket Guy standing on the porch behind them. You, he tried. You found my son. Bo looked up at the two of them, at Jacket Guy giving a tense little nod. It was odd to see him suddenly uncomfortable, as though being noticed had unlocked something different in the way he stood. Jacket Guy moved his shoulders, almost like a shrug. It wasn't any trouble, he seemed to say. He wouldn't look at Bo any more. I should get going. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Hal repeated, stunned, but Jacket Guy had already come down the porch and was going back through the snow. Bo looked at the back of his head, and had almost let him reach the end of the sidewalk when he ran after, fighting to get over the snowbank before Jacket Guy retreated too far to hear. Wait! Jacket Guy stopped in the middle of the street, turning to look back at him, at Hal lingering in the doorway. He smiled, as though taking in the sight of them. Bo was panting, hard. His wrist ached, but he didn't mind it any more in the cold. Are you really him? Bo asked, hearing it himself the way he seemed to plead it, wanting it to be true. Is it really you?
You're probably thinking, what the fuck? This is the appropriate and natural response to what you've just experienced.
Chapter 13. I'm looking at this boy at the edge of the snow-coated lawn, at his father at the doorway. It is a struggle to keep it all in my mind. I can see the edges of the house, parts of the pavement, beginning to dissolve into white space all around. Lights all around us, strung up on houses, beam down from the street lamps. My eyes are wet. I don't really know if it matters, I tell him, and I mean it. He is disappointed by this answer, I can see, but does not argue. I look over his shoulder at his father, who's brought Kaz to the doorway and is wrapping him in a scarf. I remember how this had gone the first time, the hospital ride, the stitches I had to have put in my hand, the 3 months they stayed there, the 4 months after that until I realized I could make my wrist pop with the sound of a little firecracker. In time I would forget who exactly had carried me home that Christmas night. I would tell myself that it was a kind stranger, a neighbor's adult son home for the holidays, something more normal, more simple than what it had turned out to be. "Promise me something," I say, my eyes watering. "Just promise me you'll take care of your dad and your brother, okay?" He frowns. I wonder, briefly, what had passed through my mind when I'd heard it, if I was really as unmoved as he looks right now. But he's polite, tells me he understands, turns back toward the house, cradling his limp arm. There is not quite anything to explain the way it feels, watching him disappear behind the door. As though a piece of time has been lifted away, as though the house has become just a house, the tree inside somebody else's tree. The front door is so much smaller than I remember, the driveway not nearly as spacious. It is somebody else's house, isn't it? Whatever is there that was once mine is no longer there, left behind when I decided to leave it along with everything else inside it. I wipe my eyes dry. I keep walking down the road, and by the time I turn my head to look again, the street is empty, hazy. The scene around me is changing, becoming dark and light and back to dark. Buildings rising up out of the ground, the slick, snowy road becoming dry and glossy. Cars pass, the air becomes bright and crisp, dry wind hits the back of my head. It is light when I reach the parking lot, the brick side of the building that I know. I come to rest at the crosswalk, 10 feet from a little group of kids and parents waiting to get across the street. I watch. A mother takes her daughter's hand and gets to the other side, ushering her through the doors. The car pulls into one of the available spots close by. The door opens. She steps out, holding 2 bagged lunches. She turns her head, away from me. I haven't gotten a look at her face. She's wearing a white sweater, green pants. Her hair sits in a loose knot at the base of her neck. She steps toward the crosswalk, coming to a halt when the crossing guard puts up his sign. In 15 seconds, a shout will echo over the grounds of the playground, distracting them all. The guard, a man in his 30s, will step over the curb, investigating, and she will not notice, swiping her boot against the ground because it has picked up some dirty frozen slush. It will occur to her, hearing nothing, that she must have been beckoned to move forward, and she will look up, coming to rest her sight on the doors ahead, and step into the path of a school bus heading down the lane. I see the bus, coming away from the curb, her head still pointed down at her shoes. I am feet from her, walking, delirious now. The edges of the school building have started to come undone. My hand is out, reaching for her arm. My fingers have almost reached the sleeve of her sweater. Her head is still turned. I want so desperately to see her, just to look at her. I have lived this vision 1,000 times, watched my fingers make contact with the sleeve, watched her foot lift up, step out onto the road as the bus barrels nearer, watched her start at my hand, pulling her head up, turning it inch by inch to look back toward me. I am closer than I have ever come. I see the outline of her jaw, her nose, almost, an eyebrow. We move as though encased in water, too slow to react, to stop what is coming. Her face, turning away from the bus, coming to rest on... "Haven't you noticed? You're already in one." Jacket Guy never misses, not once. He is given many opportunities, perps that run, perps that jump into cars, perps that fire shots over their shoulders or through walls and doors during an ongoing stick-up. Jacket Guy always nails them. And while the thought does occur that Jacket Guy may not ever miss because Jacket Guy only takes the shots he knows he can't miss, it is not dwelled upon for very long or very hard. This is, after all, a great way to live. I woke. I could spot the edge of my phone halfway under my pillow and dug for it, checking the time. I'd become used to waking just a minute or two before my alarm, and today had been no exception. Sunlight poured through the shielded windows. Sunlight poured through the shielded windows. Sunlight poured through the shielded windows. Jacket Guy never misses. Not once. Always. It was your thing, your soul and your being. You were the guy who wanted everybody in the world to give you a reason, and for the most part, for most of the episodes through 1985 and 1986, they did. Have you figured it out? Have I figured what out? Why an elevator would open when the car isn't there. Sunlight poured through the shielded windows. What do you have? Endless repeated wire systems. A hydrogen bomb that keeps performing fission, keeps replenishing its source. In a word, renewable. In two, perpetual motion. No, he acquiesces. He lends the loaves because of persistence. Now, there are genuine religious applications for this story. It's thought to be instructive to the action of prayer. Ask and ask again, and it will be given to you. But more than that, it's an escape valve in an action. It has no other meaning. It's transactional. Sunlight poured through the shielded windows. Sunlight poured through the shielded windows. You're gonna have to be brave, Bo, okay? I need that from you. Your brother needs time to figure this out, same as us. We're all going to process this in different ways. You know what process means? Asian representation and all that. And maybe people say there's still just one-off supporting characters and whatever, and yeah, by modern standards, a lot of it is still pretty insensitive. But somebody had to take the first step, and it was them, and I'm proud of that. Look at me, not even Chinese, and I'm proud. The stars are brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth. Sunlight poured through the shielded windows. Good night. I love you. She loved you. Uma loved you. There wasn't enough time. 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 You couldn't understand. I don't either. I'm doing my best, but this part's always escaped me. I've been over it again and again and again and can't seem to understand. The moment in which she turned her head, the split second before I saw her face, the instant a crack opened up in the light, in the sky and the road and the air itself like a suctioned hole, tearing itself apart. I don't know how long I stayed in there, how much time passed. It was, in a way, like being dead. No thoughts, no dreams, something that doesn't take substance until you're out, which, of course, isn't supposed to happen under normal circumstances. I miss it. I want to go back. Does this answer your question? I've tried to lay it out for you. I've tried to give you every possible reason I could think of in the hopes that one of them might just satisfy you. I've been back and forth so many times that I can barely keep track anymore. It's tough living this way in a jar of my thoughts. I can't imagine doing this forever. The choices are, go back to the dark or go forward, and I am still not sure which way I have decided to go. I go between opinions when I think about that last episode, the season, and inadvertently series, finale, The Doorway. Obviously, your writers had something major planned for Season 3, something that moved the entire space out of a cop procedural and into something else, a dichotomy, a struggle between good and evil. Which wasn't a bad thing. Shows were, of course, allowed to evolve. There'd be half a season or more, I'm sure, dedicated to rescuing Moto, defeating the Demon Head, rehabilitating life back into something more recognizable, surely. And then, what? Back to business? Would you stay around Little China? Would you put Moto in a school? Retire from the force? Or better yet, were you going to die? Go out with a bang, defusing a bomb or taking a bullet meant for somebody else? Was that your destiny? Would you find this fair? And more importantly, did you see it coming? The Doorway might have ruined me. What did they imagine would happen to all the kids like me who'd grown up watching that show? For something as cruel and evil as that to happen, and for there never to be another word on the matter. What would they do with a revival movie? Go back in right after they left, right where they left off? With different actors? Bullshit. You fucked yourself with that one. There was no way to save it. In your mythos, Moto is gone forever. You are kneeling in that ransacked apartment, terrified forever. There wasn't enough time. There wasn't enough time. What you had is a crisis of opportunity. And that opportunity's gone, never again to be replaced. That's what destroyed me. That's what I have to carry around in my heart every day of my life, knowing that you'll never see rescue. And now, 30 years later, with Antonin Haubert dead and in the ground, with Raider relegated to sideshow status, that Asian cop show that was kind of racist, that's where you still are, locked in there forever. I hate it, Raider. I hate what they did to you. Why can't I ever protect you from anything? You don't deserve this. You've never deserved it. You saved my life, man. You kept me alive. Maybe that's what I've been trying to say all along, and the reason is, more or less, you. And always has been. I can feel pressure in my wrist, the one I haven't broken, and heaviness in my feet down below. It's as if something full-bodied is lying on top of me, pushing me farther and farther into the softness, so slowly as to be almost comforting. I'm tired. I want to sleep. I haven't moved in so long. I've almost forgotten how in this state. I'm thinking of you in the hospital after the shootout, the way you must have hung in the balance, not knowing whether you would live or die, afraid of what would happen to Moto, afraid of everybody, everything. Maybe I am the same way. Afraid of my father and my brother. Afraid of the way I've treated them. Afraid of Lev, of my job, of a company that employs me. Afraid of doing my job. Afraid of losing my job. Afraid of my apartment, of my phone. Afraid of that fucking girl with the earrings in my lobby. Of all things. Afraid of you. Afraid of myself. Would it be this easy? Would it really be so that after all this time I could just do like you do in the episode in which we find you in your hospital room with Moto, in which you turn your head, swallow spit, and open my eyes? The light is the first thing that blasts me, so unbelievably harsh that the first thing I do is close them right back up again, sinking gratefully back into the darkness, thinking to myself that I'm good, I don't need to wake up after all. But those thoughts, however good and comfortable at first, don't stay for long. This isn't what I've set out to do. I've got purpose. I've got conviction. So I open my eyes again and see white. Hazy shapes. It's not unlike being in a commute, I have to say. Things go from blurry to nearly focused, then back to blurry again based on where I decide to put my energy. I turn my head, moving against pillows that smell like antiseptic. I lift my hand, then a gunshot claps my ears. A door has been flung open. There are voices all around me, lights being aimed straight into my eyes, hands around my ankles. I am being told to blink and open my mouth and press down with my feet and take a deep breath and try to make a noise with my mouth and make a tummy muscle and make a fist and about 100 other things I don't understand even though I try, and I really do try. The light feels like it's burning the back of my brain, it's so bright. After a while, I stop trying to coordinate my limbs and sink back down. The voices get hazier, more unhinged. I am closing my eyes, falling back down, falling asleep, giving up. Next time. Next time. I wake. I move my eyes under my... Okay, give me a second. I'm getting a phone call. I probably have to take this. Sorry about that. I wake. I move my eyes under my eyelids, slowly, then more urgently, and lift them, finding a white wall, a television plugged into the corner. I tilt my head down, at a paper gown under which I don't even think I have underwear on. Blankets cover my feet. Sunlight pours in through the blinds. I see her. Same sheet of black hair, same little pink heat in her cheeks, hands folded in her lap, sitting, looking at me, staring with wide eyes as I move my head, trying to get a better view of her. Min. She opens her mouth, reaches forward, and takes my hand. I swallow, and it's like forcing down a ball of sawdust. I toss my head around, glimpsing a cute little baggie of saline above my head, a wall of monitors and instruments above me. Min squeezes my hand. "What do you need?" she asks me, urgently. I mouth, making the first syllable. Water? She pulls something from behind her, a little table on wheels, and pours a paper cup for me. She puts her hand on my forehead, which feels good, and lets me drink. I drain the cup and try to ask for more. She gives it to me. When I'm done, we spend a good portion of a minute staring at each other. She keeps turning around, looking for somebody through the window to the hallway, finding none. Her hand is still warm and soft in mine. She breathes deeply, looking at me. "Welcome back." I feel like I've rolled my eyes, or at least done something that makes her smile, and I'm happy to see it. I open my mouth again. "Where am I try to say. It comes out, "Ye." I've heard it back through my ears. I try again. "We, me, Min's face falls as I keep trying. Again and again. I can see it so clearly in my head. Where am I? Where am I? But the sounds coming from me aren't anything of the sort. My mouth isn't moving the way I want it to. My tongue seems like a dead instrument lounging lazily behind my teeth. I can barely feel anything there. I try speaking again. Min says, "Try to relax, okay? Deep breaths." I'm panicking now, moving my mouth, giving breath, and finding about half the time that my lungs don't even obey. I'm asking, "What happened? What happened?" Eventually, I'm flailing so much that the door opens. A doctor and a nurse enter. I see Min, ushered to the side while the nurse puts a hand on the wrist connected to the saline. I'm being told to calm down, to breathe. I'm handed a notepad and a pen. The first attempts I make to spell end with the pen slipping from my fingers. Slowly, with the thing gripped tight in my fist, I manage to write in loopy letters, "No talk." The doctor, my doctor, exchanges a glance with the nurse. "You're right," she begins. "What I want you to remember is you've been asleep for a long time. You haven't used your body in months. She stopped herself. "Why don't we start from the beginning?" My eyes go beside her to Min, off to the left. My hand is out, open. I'm looking at her, begging. She slides closer and takes my hand. The doctor takes the second chair beside me. "I'll try to be as precise as I can. You've been in a medically induced coma for the past 2 months as a result of a stroke that almost killed you. We're attributing it to acute stress, some irregular heart activity. For your age, we've found this is rather rare. You lost oxygen flow to your brain for about 20 seconds, and in that time, your speech center sustained critical damage. It's likely you've lost the ability to speak. Permanently." I blink, squeezing Min's hand harder. She'd said 2 months. I am almost sure she said 2 months. I raise my other hand to my face, finding thick scruff on my chin and neck, my hair curled past my ears. I pick up my pen. 2? "That's correct. You opened your eyes for the first time last week." Min is staring down at our hands, listening. I write, "Job." "Our family planner has been in contact with your old manager. Your stroke occurred about a week after you formally resigned your position, but he's arranged for you to receive an extended severance package given the circumstances. Call it pension." I shake my head, trying again to speak. Not 1 week, not 1 week, lying, lie. Each time they come out as gibberish. My doctor gestures to the pad. I know this is a lot to take in. Our plan is to let you rest intermittently while we try to answer the questions you have. I flail, scrambling for the pencil. Apartment. Your employer has taken care of the details. The lease on your apartment has been renewed for another year, after which you'll be able to make your own decisions. You're awake, which is an extremely good sign, but your body is still very weak. You'll need physical therapy for a time before we discharge you, and for a couple of months after, you leave as well. No money. Hospital. That's been arranged. Dad. Where is my dad? Brother. My doctor takes a pause. She gives another look to the nurse, then to Min. Perhaps we should let you rest and continue on later this afternoon, if you're feeling up to it. I look between the three of them, pointing to the words on my pad, circling Dad. There seemed to be no way around it. After a very long time, Min draws close. I'm so sorry. It looks like on the morning you had your... I wait for her to keep talking, to tell me in clear tones that they had saved him, that he was in the next room over, maybe, that he was on his way to see me. I shake my head, silently. Min doesn't say anything more. It was a heart attack. Quick, says my doctor. I just keep shaking my head. It doesn't feel like I ever imagined, not like anything else does. People often exaggerate. It's their best quality. They say that things sometimes happen to change the look of the world when rarely they do, when, rather, things changed gradually without their noticing it. But not this time. This time, the words take all that's left of me. I blink tears from my eyes. I shake my head for what seems like minutes, while they stand there and watch me. Min takes tissues and dabs my face with them. I wait, scrawling on the pad, Kaz. Min keeps rubbing my hand. It's all I can feel while she speaks. You're going to have to talk with the police once they get here. I'm not sure what exactly, but your brother's waiting for a trial right now. They're saying some kind of armed altercation. Happened in a drugstore a few days after you went to the hospital. I don't know. That was around the time of the last blackout. Long one, too. It was chaos here. I've run out of paper. I tap at it frantically with my hand while Min turns the page for me. Not true. I am envisioning his face, not my brother's. Hardly. I see him, the only one I know capable of pulling something like this off. To put Kaz in jail, to remind me what I.O. Emsworth had told me the first day I learned to commute. That he was watching, and would always be. Lev. And I think, repeating his name in my head, that he'll never talk to me again, that I'll never be able to prove it, and it will stay with me until the day I die. Were you close? Min asks me. I keep pointing at my page, though it does nothing. My doctor and the nurse seem ready to leave. I'd like to let you rest, she says. We'll be back in a few hours' time to check in. I'm told more, but I don't hear it. I struggle, moving my shoulders, trying to make them stay, but they've already gone out into the hallway. The door closes behind them. Min hasn't yet let go of my hand. I'm allowed a second to notice her, really see her face. In the time past, there's almost nothing that I notice has changed about her. Hair a bit longer. I find myself holding on to her as hard as I can, trying to keep breathing. She's been coming here for 2 months, I realize. I scribble, How did you find me? Min reads my handwriting. I didn't. They found my number in your bag. She almost smiles. For a while, I was never going to see you again. I was happy. I don't know what to say. My fingers and toes are numb. My chest feels like a vacuum, depleted, entirely empty. It's hard to take breaths. My father is dead. My brother... I close my eyes. I write, Why did you come? It breaks my heart to look at her. I'm sorry for what I did. I don't know how to say it to her. It crosses my mind that if in any way I still deserve her, it would be because people, in some primitive and primordial way, need at least one thing in their lives to give meaning to everything they do, and since I had none, not any more, it would have to be her. And it is not the look she gives me, reading my note, or the feel of her hand in mine, or the vast space I feel all around me, the way in which I've grown so small and the world around me so big, but instead the little hint of pain in her eyes that tells me, almost before she does it, what's about to happen. That somehow what I am is no longer what I used to be, that suddenly, for the second time in my life, there is a different world I have woken up in than the one in which I was knocked asleep. That I lie here, unable to speak, unable to do anything but look, while she gets up out of her chair and shows me the round curve of her stomach under her shirt.
And that is where we will leave it for today. On this, that most melodramatic of possible notes. You're probably wondering what the hell is going on.
Well, have I got news for yous? You might find out tomorrow. I don't know.
If you're listening to this after the fact, you might find out in a few minutes. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know what future people are doing. I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway. Why am I here? What's going on? Who is this? This is not my beautiful house. This is not my beautiful wife. Where am I? Water flowing under me. At any rate, that's where we'll leave off. Hopefully people enjoyed. This was a roller coaster installment. And we have yet more roller coaster to go, which is nice. Okie dokie. I will see you all tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in, everyone who tuned in. If you didn't tune in, I forgive you, if only you can forgive yourself. And, no, seriously, it's okay. If you're listening to it after the fact, that's just as well. But yeah, we'll be finishing this book mañana. Same time, same station, is the plan. And then we'll have a day, well, you'll have a day break, I won't. And then we'll start on Regenesis by C.J. Cherryh, the direct sequel, and I do mean direct, to Cytine. Much to look forward to. All right.